Ready for a roll call? Miss Mary?
Sorry.
No worries.
Mayor Bridget Keating,
Present?
Vice Mayor Christy Mosbach,
Here.
President Pro Tem Taylor Materio.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory Freebold,
Here.
Councilmember John Maples.
Here.
We'll stand in a moment of silence with Pastor Hunter.
Bow our heads together, please. Father in heaven, I come to you tonight and I thank you for the privilege tonight to pray. Prayer is what we need. Our nation needs prayer. Everybody needs prayer. God, you told us in your word that we're to pray about everything. God, you told us in your word that that you would hear our prayers and answer our prayers, and we thank you for that. We thank you tonight, Lord, that we can pray and about anything, and Lord, that you can meet any need, solve any problem. So that's why we turn to you tonight. Lord, we thank you tonight for this board. Lord, I want to pray tonight that you would bless the meeting tonight. I want to pray tonight, Lord, that you would just give these dear people tonight, may the will of God be done in our meeting tonight. I pray tonight, Lord, that you would give each one of them wisdom. You said, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God. So we can get wisdom from God to deal with our issues, deal with our problems, deal with our needs to make this town even better. So God, I pray for wisdom tonight. Lord, I pray for unity. I pray, Lord, that you give them sweet peace. My prayer today was for this meeting tonight, that these folks could go home tonight saying, we had a good meeting. Much was accomplished. We had sweet time, sweet spirit. I pray for the meeting tonight. Lord, I want to pray for our policemen tonight and our officers tonight, Chief Smith. I want to thank you for them tonight, Lord. And really, they lay their life on the line every day. I pray for their protection. I thank you for them. And I pray that, Lord, that they feel so appreciated by this community. God bless them. Lord, I pray your blessing upon America tonight. I pray your blessing upon those dear people in Texas. Lord, we can't help but think about them tonight and ask, Lord, that you'd be so merciful. Lord, that you be gracious and kind, that they find everyone that's missing tonight in the next few days. God, be with those dear people and comfort them. Lord, bless people tonight in our town who've lost their lives, and be with their families tonight. And I pray that you comfort them. I just want to pray for the community tonight. Bring us all together. May we have a sweet spirit tonight in this place. I pray it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Let's have a
Pledge
moment of
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
remain standing for a moment of silence for remembering those that have passed. Gwendolyn Henderson, 65 years old, passed on June 10th. She was a Tampa City councilwoman. Martha Espinosa, she's 65. She passed on 6/11. She's Melissa Espinosa's aunt, our clerk. And keep our thoughts and prayers for the victims of the floods in Texas, as well as the first responders that continue to work through this tireless effort. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any audience members that would like to speak? Do we have any online?
No.
Okay, we'll move right on. No written or email questions?
No.
Okay. Like to have a recommendation for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Approved? We have a motion, consider a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Presentations, we have legislative recap from Richard Pinsky, Governmental Affairs Rep. Pinsky and Associates. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Manager, Mr. Attorney. I was hoping by now my backup singers would be here, but
We know you can handle it.
Representative Tendrich and Senator Bernard, I'm sure, are on their way. And they're going to take the part that goes into actual legislation, what passed, what didn't pass. For those of you, I know the mayor did, that sat in on Representative Tendrich's and Senator Bernard's virtual meeting last week, 2 weeks ago. It was informative and comprehensive, so I'm sure they'll cover a lot of the same things. I'm going to talk about the budget and what happened with our budget requests. I do want to thank the mayor, Joe, coming to Tallahassee. We missed Commissioner Maples for one of the trips this year, but you did make the councilman. You didn't come up for the League of Cities, though, did you? Or
I was there.
okay. I think you were up there one time. I know that I kept asking, where's John?
Yeah.
I know you had other things going on too. Anyway, it works very well when council members come up. And if you haven't been up, I would suggest next session you think about it. We spent a lot of time meeting with staff, explaining in particular, our focus was the sewer spill and the need for the cleanup of Lake Clark. We also spent time with DEP, explaining to them. We put a lot of time in, and it is worthwhile. Didn't bear fruit necessarily yet, but so I made a couple of notes just so I don't miss the chronology. But as we were here just a little over a year ago, when we were deciding what our legislative requests were going to be for this past session, and at that time the sewer spill was still fresh, and we were trying to decide what would be the priority. We decided to move the cleanup of Lake Clark to the water quality improvement grant request, because that didn't require a match. And the cleanup being probably $5 million plus, the town would have had to have pledged $2.5 million before the House and the legislature would even consider the member project request. So we decided to use that as the request, and we went ahead and depending on what would happen, kept the continuation of the septic to sewer conversion as our legislative request, knowing that October, November, the latest December, they would be announcing the awards for the grant. And if we weren't successful, we could shift it over to a legislative request. We could still play with it. And that's the way we came to the decision. We did submit the grant. Your manager and the team, your town submitted the request on time to FDEP, and everything was going along great. September, October, November, December, all come and go, and they still don't announce the award winners of the grant. January, no. February, the governor releases his proposed budget for the start of the March session, and still nothing. And then the deadline to submit member projects comes. We submitted our septic to sewer, but still no word on the awards. So halfway through session, a month after the deadline to submit your member projects, finally, March 25th, March 26th, somewhere around there, they announced who would, the recipient of the $200 million water quality improvement grants. Only one project in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach combined received any grant, and that was Miami Springs. I have a funny notion of why. The DEP explained that this year they decided to focus on restoration of springs. So North Central Florida, north of Orlando, Ocala, Gainesville, all the Florida's natural springs received the bulk of the $200 million. I think they picked Miami Springs because they thought it was one of the springs. Is all I can think of is they focused on the springs.
It said springs.
Miami was Miami Springs. So I don't go figure.
Lucky them.
So so that was disappointing, particularly since this is the second time that's happened to South Florida. So we quickly shifted at that point to understanding that the most important thing, while septic to sewer, I don't want to take away from the importance, but we really need to make sure that we get those dollars for the lake cleanup. So we shifted to budget proviso. That's the language that when there's a budget out, little notations go with the budget about this line item, you can spend this amount of money on this. And that's what we started. And Representative Tendrich, Senator Bernard jumped in understood the problem, what we had to do, and we started working it. We had agreement on the Senate that they would take language to do that, and we were going after the state revolving loan fund. And even though that wasn't necessarily ideal, but a 1.5% loan to get it started. And who knows what happens in the future. And we thought that was the best route. So the first thing we did, we checked with FDEP and said, this is what we want to do. They came back quickly. And I think, Joe, Mr. Manager, we talked to Adam Blaylock at FDEP, who's been aware of our issue for some time. And he quickly got back to me and said, we're not eligible. And so the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund, because it's a lake cleanup, is not eligible. Go figure. So that's when we shifted again to said, okay, we're going to put proviso in that for 1 year only directs DEP. This year you can dip into it and use it for that. The Senate had agreed to it. And when the extended session into conference, things got disjointed, but we hung on, and at the very end, literally the last weekend of that extended 109-day session, that last weekend of conference, the House finally rejected it and said it didn't meet the criteria because it's an 80-20 match with federal dollars that keeps that loan working, and we weren't going to be able to meet the 80% that the federal guideline calls for, and they weren't willing to budge off of the 20%. So it's really the House that was the letdown. So that brings us to where we are now, because we don't give up and we keep fighting, and that is we need intervention from the governor. And the way that you do that is through the Secretary of DEP. I'm suggesting, I have drafted a letter for your consideration. That would be a joint letter. Representative Tendrich and Senator Bernard have both indicated their willingness to send it as a joint letter, inviting the Secretary of DEP to come visit the town and site visit to see the lake in the condition firsthand. If to speed it up, if the town wants to send a letter, that's fine too. But we have a lot of friends, legislators, people that work at DEP. We have a lot of wherewithal that once a letter is sent requesting the visit, to come in behind that and really push hard for the secretary to come down here. And either the secretary can authorize the money or would probably be going to the governor to say, yes, this is worthwhile. So that item is before you as an action item. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but that is our next step right now, which is to get some sort of a letter. And I can see.
One of your backup
Yes,
singers.
one of your backup singers is here.
So I was just explaining, Representative, how we almost made it with some money for the cleanup, and that the way it's left right now is we're going to try to get the secretary down here for a visit. And so Representative Tendrich has gone way over and beyond trying to make that happen. And I will tell you, she calls me frequently, bugs me often. And it's like, well, have you thought about this? So, but she's at the front of the parade trying to make it happen. So the letter, I don't know, Joe, if they have it in front of them, but that's certainly an item that needs to be discussed. Happy to answer any questions before I turn it over to somebody far more qualified than I.
Any questions?
Okay, good.
Once the letter is set,
Pardon?
what's the time frame for response?
Should get a response very quickly. So immediately, for example, I would be following up with Adam Blaylock, also Jason Adriata, who I think either lives in the town or
He's
close
very,
to.
very close.
Yep, is one of the deputies up in Tallahassee. I think he does a lot remotely. So we'd want to get Jason, Adam. We'd want to start getting not just our state and representative and senator for this area, but Representative Caruso. I mean, we would start circling the wagons, get everybody full court press to really stress to the secretary to come down, look at it firsthand, and you will see that this is a priority.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard.
Thank you.
Are you
Good
ready? Welcome Representative Deborah Tendrance. You're next.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Deborah Tendrich, and I'm your state representative. I represent Lake Clark Shores. This was my first session. I recently elected in November, and this is my first legislative update with Lake Clark Shores. Just to piggyback quickly before we move any further with what Richard was talking about, we also submitted a letter to the secretary to request them to come out and visit and to work with them for other options. I've been working with committee staff in Tallahassee to find out if there's other avenues for funding. And if not, they're very much aware of the situation. And we really drilled it in to them that this is a priority project for Lake Clark Shores. So with that being said, if we can't get any funding and the interim session is in January, it is a budget request that we would, be glad to bring forward, so we can bring back and return your quality of life here with regards to that lake. So that's something we're pursuing. We're making a lot of phone calls behind the scenes to see if there's any other actions we can take that would provide some relief for you right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is something that, it seems like perhaps from some of the conversations that because this is a smaller town, that they just kind of are kicking this down the road, and we're wanting to make sure that we apply enough pressure to make sure they do take this as a priority. So just so you know, for those who don't actually know me, I am a mom. I run a nonprofit, and my daughter does go to our public schools here in Palm Beach County. So I'm very much involved in the community on the ground, but I see how policies from Tallahassee trickle down and affect people every single day. So, I actually was assigned some committees, quite busy this session. I was given 8 committee assignments, which is a lot for a freshman. I'm on the Joint Administrative Procedures Committee, the Select Committee on Property Taxes, which is one we had a meeting. It was great to see Joe Lobello, attend that meeting, and we had representatives from other cities and stakeholders come together. The thing about the property taxes is that if we do eliminate property taxes, we would be defunding local government if we don't replace that revenue stream. So we're trying to really push back on that because police and fire would be defunded. A lot of the other infrastructure projects would also be defunded. So we want to make sure that we don't defund local government. And with that being said, we haven't actually had another meeting. So we're kind of just sitting idly by to see what happens. But that's a priority. And I did present some ideas that would actually create some additional revenue streams that would kind of make up for that if they do go that route. But we definitely don't want to take any funds away from our local government. So that's a priority of mine. I'm on the State Affairs Committee, Natural Resources and Disaster Subcommittee, Information Technology Budget and Policy Subcommittee, the Healthcare Budget Subcommittee, Student Academic Success Subcommittee, and we were also given, a few of us were given a special water veto project where we were looking at some products that were vetoed in the previous year. And I was assigned to the vetoed water projects, and it was about 1,300 pages given to us in a binder. We had about 2 days to read it. And anyway, so that was a really interesting committee that they added me onto. This session I did pass a bill, my first bill, which is the
Congrats.
Thank you to have the state of Florida recognize International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And that's really important right now, especially with the rising anti-Semitism. And we are now seeing, even in our local colleges here in Palm Beach County, that more students are not only trying to deny the Holocaust, but even justify it. So January 27th, every year from now on, which is the day Auschwitz concentration camp was liberated, we will be recognizing that along with the rest of the world. I also almost passed one other bill. It got stopped in the third committee, but affordable housing is a huge issue. So we will be bringing this back. I'm not sure if this is relevant to any future developments, but if you are looking at any developers, there are clauses that you could put into those contracts with developers that would prevent them from creating mid-lease rental increases on affordable housing units. And if that ever comes up, I can provide you with some language while we try to go and make that a retroactive bill. We did bring back about $2 million through the House and Senate. The governor did veto a lot of those projects, unfortunately. And one of them was one of my pet projects, which would have allowed veterans to ride public transportation for free in Palm Beach
Wow.
County. It would have been called the Patriot Pass, but he did veto that $150,000 request. Unfortunately, but we did get fire equipment for City of West Palm. And we also did get funding for scholarships for kids to go to camp so to keep families working, because childcare is very expensive, especially when they don't have the cost of when they're not in school and they have to pay the extra childcare. We had a big condo relief bill, which is really important because that was a really big financial burden with the recent Surfside, and the state legislature put these knee-jerk reaction laws, and it really harmed a lot of the people because it took them out of their financial comfort zone and put them onto that fiscal cliff. So now they did expand the ability to have more matching grants and funds for condos. So if there's anyone in condos, now the condo can actually get a line of credit to expand that time frame. They could actually go ahead and get matching funds. I think it's up to $175,000. Anything that would actually reduce the the insurance rates, mitigation or anything like that. So there has been some reform that would take away some of that financial pressure. And just passing through some things that might not affect you all. But yeah, so with that being, another issue is with the property taxes that we were talking about. We were a little bit frustrated too because property insurance didn't really come up in that conversation. And really that's whenever I bring up the property taxes, the follow-up is, well, what about our insurance?
Right.
And so we're really diving into seeing if there's any viable options that would help us, eliminate some of those burdens and make it more transparent and take some of the pressures off of the consumers when it comes to, what's happening right now. A lot of the breaks have gone to the top, but they don't trickle down to the consumers. So we're trying to reverse that and see if there's anything that we can do that would actually provide relief to the consumers and not just to the companies. We also co-sponsored and passed tons of other bills that were really, really helpful when it comes to one of the big ones. If anyone here has kids in middle school, there was a bill that passed prior that would have changed the start times for schools. Yes. That has been reversed, and now it's back onto the districts. So we're back to normal, which is a big relief for many people, and quite a few other different bills that just overall were great. We can dive into. Other than that, we stopped a few bad bills. There was a CRA bill. They were actually trying to sunset and terminate all of these CRAs across the entire state. And I was able to put together, because we have some amazing CRAs. You all have a great CRA here in Lake Clark Shores. So because of that, I wanted to make sure that we brought some really great CRAs together with a bill sponsor. And we were able to put together a Zoom meeting and actually change that legislation. And actually, in the end, we were able to kill that bill. So, we were able to collectively work together and make sure that that was positioned to really make sure that it doesn't harm any future projects or even harm our current CRAs. And so we were successful in that. And I'm really proud, Joe Lavello, he was amazing. And he even said that he's never actually seen someone be able to put together a Zoom meeting with the sponsor to try to convince them to change the bill. And so that was a big win. There was one, if anyone, when I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the residents, and some of them actually shared a lot of concerns in Lake Clark Shores about HB 1205, which is the ballot initiative, citizen-led initiative process that passed in the House. We really, really fought hard against that one. But if anyone is looking to create a citizen-led ballot initiative, it is now virtually impossible. So they took away all the rights and abilities for citizens to lead those initiatives. In order to do a citizen-led initiative, now you need $1 million bond, you need a 90% accuracy rate, and human error alone will never, ever allow you to even get that. And they also shrunk the time that you can submit those and turn in those petitions from 30 days to 10 days, which even minimizes your ability to even vet the errors. So, and if you are a volunteer and you collect more than 25 petitions, that's a third-degree felony. So, that's a way that a lot of college students like to engage. And so that's really been harmful. Additionally, I was on the healthcare budget subcommittee, and a big topic of discussion, we can get into this a little later if anyone wants to talk offline. But we found mismanagement of $10 million that was redirected, that was designed for healthcare dollars and Medicaid funds, and it was actually money laundered into the Hope Florida Foundation and used to fight the citizens on the ballot initiative. That was a big one that the healthcare budget actually brought to light. And so I've been getting a lot of emails, a lot of people from Lake Clark Shores. So well, I'm here if anyone here has any questions about that. The chain of those dollars taking away from our healthcare budget was not any settlement, just so you know, over $1 million is actually required to be brought to the legislature. And that settlement was $67 million, and 57 went back to ACA, but 10 million was wired separately to the Hope Florida Foundation. And then that money was then wired to two 501c4s, dark money PACs, then into James Uthmeyer's PAC, which then fought ballot initiatives against the citizens. So that was very much against the DSO statute in the state of Florida statute, and it's really not how you run a nonprofit. And so that was really, really disheartening, knowing that these citizens really want to have access to healthcare. And so with that being said, we did a really good job this session, worked really well together. And next session, I'm really working to make sure that we are working on bills right now for mental health and youth, for domestic violence, more affordable housing. We'll be fighting for your waterways continuously before session and during session. And there's been a few other projects that some of the other residents here have brought to light about intercoastal access and some other things that, you know, I'm looking really forward into kind of expanding that conversation to see how else I can really help Lake Clark Shores and make sure everyone gets the quality of life and success is here, and we'll work on it together.
Thank you. You have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Rep. Tenders, thank you for your work in Tallahassee. And I do want to say the Jewish holiday is incredible. That's a big deal, and thank you for doing that. And I know that's your heritage, and I appreciate you standing up and fighting for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And, you know, the truth behind it is that, you know, being Jewish right now is a target on my back. You know, I've been, people wish death upon me, have wished I crashed and died, have told me I can't represent America first if I wear a Jewish star around my neck, that I should go to Israel and be a politician there. Or there's a number of other attacks that I've heard just for being Jewish. And so at a time like this, I appreciate your support on that issue. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much for all your efforts on our behalf.
Thank you.
You have anything?
Thank you for tackling 8 committees. That's,
Yeah, that's a big deal.
I have done that to you on purpose.
I was, they either love you
Oh,
or
I think
hate
they
you. I'm not
did.
sure which.
Thank you again.
Mayor, I normally don't comment, but I
Yes.
just have to say the representative has been incredible to work with. So thank you.
I appreciate it. And I look forward to staying engaged with each and every one of you. And I do have my information for everyone here. It was great seeing you on for the 4th of July.
Mhm.
And other than that, I'm just here. I'm very accessible. We're right here on Florida Mango and Forest Hill. And, you know, I just am excited to be part of, you know, your community and Lake Clark Shores as a whole. So thank you so much for welcoming me.
Thank you. Look
Thank
forward to
you.
working with you next year.
Thank you.
Tomorrow I'll be working.
All right. It doesn't look like Senator Mack's here, so no quasi judicial proceedings, no public hearings, unfinished business, traffic study with Brian Kelly.
Ryan, Mr. Kelly.
Welcome.
Mr. Kelly is our traffic engineer. He did a study for us. What was it, 23?
Yes, 23.
And as we discussed last month, after approving our paving project, we'd like to talk about 4 items or any other item. You know, you have an expert here. The main was, you know, should we continue that practice of the double yellow lines? Should we talk about narrowing the lanes from, I think they're 11 feet wide, travel lanes, narrowing that and adding a pedestrian path? What about stop signs? Too much, too little? And obviously traffic calming devices, how we're doing with that. So please, if you can.
Yeah, I guess we can go one of 2 ways. If you want me to just kind of go ahead and kind of offer my professional opinion, kind of item by item, or I can field questions. I'm, at your disposal. However,
I think it would be good if you just opened up on all four of them and even explain what a double yellow and
Yep.
other options
Yep,
there are.
very good. So, and for the record, Brian Kelly, I'm a vice president and traffic engineer with Simmons and White. We're a local civil and traffic engineering firm, been around since 1982. So to tackle the first question about the double yellow center line. So what the double yellow center line is, when you're driving on a roadway, you see it, there's two 6-inch lines that go down the roadway. Generally speaking, this striping is a relatively low cost compared to the overall cost of constructing a roadway. The purpose of them is, I would say, kind of twofold. Number one, the presence of the double yellow helps keep people in their lane naturally, right? When you have a 2-lane local roadway, and I've seen this in many other residential areas, when you don't have that yellow line, the double yellow down the line, people tend to drive a little bit more towards the center of the roadway, which is not always the end of the world. But what happens is people naturally speed up. So speeding occurs based on how comfortable you feel on a roadway. And by having that double yellow there, it keeps you a little bit more confined within the roadway, and that naturally causes speeding to go down a little bit. Now, no, this isn't a 5-mile-per-hour reduction, but it may be 1 or 2 miles per hour, and every little bit of that helps. The other part of it that I think is important too, particularly within the town, is you have a lot of curvy roads. So if you just had a straight road, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But when you have a lot of curvy roads, that's another time people naturally will start to kind of drift over into the other lane. And that's where sometimes there can be safety issues, because you may not always have great line of sight when someone's coming at you from the other direction. So for these reasons, I recommend the double yellow line. I think it's a benefit to have those, mainly for the idea of it does reduce speeding, and it is a safety component as well. There is sometimes some confusion on double yellow lines, and that is a lot of times people think, oh, double yellow lines, I can't cross. That's not actually correct. What double yellow lines mean is I cannot pass somebody. So if you're on a street or you're within a residential driveway, you can turn in and out of those double yellow lines. That's completely legal. It just means you are not actually allowed to pass somebody. So that's the legal kind of parameters of those lines.
Can you estimate the cost per yard or foot or whatever? Because
I don't have that number. I apologize. Typically, when we do striping estimates, we're kind of doing large areas. But in my professional opinion, it's generally a very low percentage of, particularly what asphalt cost. Taking the next one, if there's no more questions, you can come back at the end and certainly we can go back to that. The second item is the feasibility and benefiting of narrowing travel lanes to incorporate a pedestrian path. In certain circumstance, this may make sense. I would recommend for Pine Tree Road in the town that I don't think this is a feasible option. Right now, you have about 22 feet in travel width. That may vary at a couple of locations, but you really want to take it down much further. You have, certainly you're going to have trailers, you're going to have garbage truck, fire trucks, larger vehicles that are going to be traveling these roads. And as we just talked about, some of them are curvy and you need a little bit more maneuverability when those kind of things occur. And really, I never recommend travel lanes less than 10 feet. So at maximum, you would be reducing it by 1 foot in each direction. And I don't think there's necessarily a huge benefit in doing that versus kind of the safety component of having a little bit larger area for that maneuverability. I do think certainly pedestrian pass would be a huge safety benefit. In my opinion, that'd be better as a standalone sidewalk or path on the side of the road versus trying to narrow the roads and incorporate that within the existing 22 feet of asphalt.
And when you say path, what's the smallest or narrowest width that you could do a path?
Typically, depending on the location, if it's off the road, about 4 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. And certainly the larger the better, but you have constraints. You have right-of-way constraints, mailboxes, trees, lots of other things, and that's understandable. About 4 feet would be about the narrowest you would want to do.
And do you have an idea of what a sidewalks cost per yard or foot?
I apologize. I did not come prepared with cost estimates. But those are numbers that are easy to
It's
obtain.
a pie in the sky.
Yeah.
We got other priorities.
Understood.
Yeah, and just a follow-up. Thank you for being here, but let me ask this question. I know you gave some recommendations on the double lines, and does that include narrowing the roads, removing the double line and adding the pedestrian walkway on the side? Or is that just saying with the double lines, it doesn't make sense to have the pedestrian 4 feet path on the side of the road?
So I am recommending keeping the double yellow lines and not narrowing them and putting a pedestrian path within that 22 foot of road. That would be something separate. I would recommend a standalone sidewalk, not part of.
I understand that. And
But
that-
yes,
that
keeping
was
the
clear.
double yellow lines.
Without the double yellow lines, it may be a little more clear. Without the double yellow lines and narrowing the roads, do we have the space for a full 4 foot path safe for people to walk their dog?
Not within the existing roadway, not within that 22 feet, no.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask?
Go.
It's been talked about putting a sidewalk on one side of the street versus both sides. Any history do you have with that?
Yeah, that's actually done at a lot of locations. Certainly both, the sidewalk on both sides of the street is the best case scenario, but for practical reasons, that's not always possible. And having a sidewalk on one side of the road is better than none. So absolutely, that's done in many different places. So if it's financially feasible or simply from a constructability standpoint on where you have utilities and everything else right away, if you can only do it on one side of the road, that's still great.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Joe.
And my belief also is, and I'd love to get your opinion, is we don't need sidewalks on every side street, but I mean, I love sidewalks, but definitely do aren't Westlake and Pine. I think we do need them on Pine Tree. What do you think of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you could, create a hierarchy essentially of it. First of all, obviously sidewalks would be a plus everywhere, but from a cost perspective and practicality matter, that may not be possible. And so if you're trying to prioritize where, is most important, most beneficial, certainly Westlake and Pine Tree, where you have the highest traffic volume, where, your kind of main spine road corridors in your community, that those would be most beneficial. Yeah. And the volumes and the length of those other side roads, they may not be necessary.
Thank you.
Are there any other options for markings? You have a double yellow line. I know single, there's dash lines or no lines. Is there anything in between?
So there can be those would tend to be kind of spot specific. So let me kind of give a little bit of information on that. So Palm Beach County, FDOT, the state of Florida, everywhere kind of confines to what's called the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. We call it the MUTCD. It's a publication by the Federal Highway Administration. And the idea is you try to keep roadway signage and striping similar from one location to the next. So when I go and drive in, say, the state of Arizona, I don't see a random sign that I have no idea how to do that. So
Understood.
for that reason, we try to keep things fairly consistent. There are certain circumstances where it may make sense to add something different. I'll give an example. You can do striping ahead of a speed hump or a speed table that provides a little bit of warning to the motorist that you're about to run into a speed table or a speed hump. That's something you can do. Sometimes if you have issues with people stopping at stop signs, you can write stop, for example, on the pavement.
Right.
Or another example is you can actually write the mile per hour, 25 mile per hour, you can actually write on that pavement.
Yes.
Most of those types of things, you're not getting a huge benefit, but there's also not necessarily a huge cost associated with it either. So really, I don't have any other recommendations other than the double yellow stripe. I think that is sufficient. People know how to drive it. I think it's beneficial. So, you can kind of do some creative things when necessary, but there's nothing that I see outside of, signing a marking for speed humps speed tables that I would recommend.
And we have the speed humps. I know there's also other options for reducing the
Speeds, yeah.
speeds. Like I know they have I don't know what they call them. Like they're little small bumps that lead up to that kind of warn you that to slow down rather than the actual speed hump. What are they called? You know what they're called?
Rumbling.
So those are called
rumble strips.
Rumble strips.
Yeah.
Those, and I'll kind of explain when you do a rumble strip. There's actually two types of rumble strip. There's one if you're on I-95 in the turnpike and you go off the side of the road, you bump into. That's one form of rumble strip. The one you're talking about is a thermoplastic horizontal stripe that goes down. those are typically put in locations when there's a change of roadway condition that you want the motorist to be aware of. I'll give you an example. They have them out in the acreage quite a bit, where you'll have 4 to 5 miles
Mhm.
of roadway with no stop signs, and they'll put them approaching a stop sign because they need to warn someone something's different's going to happen.
Right.
You feel it. Those kind of things to me don't necessarily slow you down. What they do is bring alertness to the driver. So I don't recommend them as necessarily traffic calming devices to slow vehicles
Okay.
down, because it makes you aware, but it also makes a lot of noise. So the neighbors right around it may not be the most pleased with it either.
Just trying to address the concerns of it's too many speed bumps in the area,
Yep.
and how do we slow people down?
Sure. And kind of back up on that, and I was here a couple years ago. I will tell you that the speeds that you have out on Lake Clark Shores are very reasonable. I take data collection lots of places throughout Palm Beach County, and I will tell you most of the time within communities like this, the speeds are much higher. So what you're doing here is working. I think.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, it's a combination of things, such as the speed tables that you have, the curvature of the roadways. The reality is maybe not even having those sidewalks probably slows people down a little bit too, because they're aware pedestrians are there. And a big part of it is police enforcement. Seeing cops out there, if they're giving warnings, tickets, having the speed radar signs, all of that factors in. And kind of my opinion on a lot of this stuff right now is, if it's not broke, because I don't view it as broke based on the data that I've seen, you don't need to necessarily fix anything. Certainly the roadway conditions and resurfacing the road is important to have a more usable, serviceable road. But as far as kind of the existing traffic control and the traffic calming, I think what you have is working.
Well, there's just a couple places that we think we have too much and not enough. And I think, my opinion, I know other people may feel differently. I think even though stop signs are good, I think we may have 1 or 2 too many. I mean, we want to slow people down, but some of them are redundant. They're not really effective because people are rolling through them anyway, and it's not a major intersection. But if the residents want them, then the residents keep them.
Yeah, and stop signs is the next one here, so that's a good
Okay.
transition. So I'm happy to kind of expound on stop signs a little bit. Stop signs, kind of contrary to probably popular thought or belief, are not actually a form of reducing speed. They're not actually a traffic calming device. What they are is a form of traffic operational device, traffic control, meaning you're trying to stop a vehicle there. Because what will happen is, if you have too many stop signs, people start disregarding them, or they'll start speeding up between stop signs to try to make up for lost time.
That's what I see happen.
And that may be happening to some extent. What I will tell you once again is, kind of that what you have is not broke, so maybe not necessarily needing to fix everything. The other thing you have to be careful is, when you do remove stop signs, that making sure there's not any kind of sight distance issues, because sometimes they are put in locations where you may now all of a sudden have trouble seeing the vehicle that you need to see 200 to 300 feet that way because of landscaping or something else like that. So those kind of things have to be kind of factored in when looking at it. There are what we call warrants for always stop signs, where there's supposed to be traffic volume thresholds that are met. When we did the traffic calming study, we didn't go and collect traffic volumes at all those little intersections to determine that. My professional opinion, none of them are probably warranted, or very few of them actually meet those thresholds. But they are something that's in there. It is an existing condition, and it is working in your town right now.
As I recall, your study did say that we had too many stop signs, more than necessary. Personally, I don't think that we need all those stop signs on Pine Tree that we have, because there's not a lot of traffic coming in from the side roads. But I particularly think the one that's on the inbound section on Pine Tree, just after you come off Forest Hill, you barely cross the bridge, and there's a stop sign at Venetian. You haven't had enough. I always thought it was to get people to slow down or stop, but you haven't had enough time to build up any speed. And then all of a sudden you're at a stop sign. I think that one should be removed. But
Yeah, and if it's something that the town was going to do is remove stop signs, what you would do is remove them from the major road. So, for example, either Pine Tree or Westlake Drive, those are the ones that you would want continuous movement on. and keep the lower volume streets, the stop signs on
Right.
those. So, you know, the stop signs are likely not warranted. So if some of these all-way stops were to be removed, that is a possibility that you could do. If that's something that, the town wanted to do, there would not be an issue from a, traffic standpoint doing that.
In your professional opinion, what's the single most impactful thing that we could do to make pedestrians and drivers safer?
Good question.
Oh, that is.
$1 million question.
So keeping traffic volumes, or excuse me, keeping traffic speeds reasonable is very helpful. So instead of people going 30 to 35 miles per hour, going 20 to 25 or 27 miles per hour at that lower speed, if you actually look at and everyone's probably seen these charts that go around every once in a while where you see pedestrian fatalities based on the speed of the car, there's such a dramatic change every kind of 5 miles per hour. So keeping speeds lower with particularly police enforcement is huge. Now, if you're looking for some kind of infrastructure improvement that would be the most beneficial, then I think actually having a dedicated sidewalk off the road would be most beneficial, because you're actually getting people off the road. So that would be the most beneficial.
Good question.
Very good.
And you said the minimum lane width is only 10 feet?
I would keep it at 22 feet, but you can go 10 feet. That's the narrowest you can go for a travel lane.
Well, like you said, if we were looking to do a sidewalk, we've got limited space because we have all the swales and the mailboxes. I would, look at every option if necessary.
It would be, and to kind of keep it the 22 foot, and why I recommend that, if you just had a straight road, I think probably going 10 feet lanes would be easier to do. But with the amount of curves and stuff you have, garbage trucks going down, trailers, all that kind of stuff, I would try to keep it at 22 feet. But if it push comes to shove and you had to move it to 10 feet to accommodate, a separated sidewalk, then, that could be a possibility.
Thank you.
Yep.
I don't have any more.
Is there anything else?
I think we covered the speed table question already, kind of in the general
Yes.
traffic calming, so I don't think I need to
Yep.
elaborate on that.
We've had some complaints about the two that are at the bottom of Pine Tree Lane being so close to each other. And would you recommend removing one or both of those?
And we looked at this when we did the traffic calming study, and they were within acceptable ranges. I know part of it is some of the speed humps are kind of scattered throughout the town, so you get them a little bit clustered.
Within 3 houses of each other.
Within 3 houses, I thought they were a little bit further than that.
Well,
I have to check my.
as understanding, a calming measure is a curve, and it's right at a curve. So you've got one at a straightaway, and then the next one is a short distance away, and it's at a curve. So the curve itself is going to slow you down. So having a second speed bump is redundant.
Yeah, I mean, once again, if the village wanted to remove that, I don't think it's going to cause much harm. But I would say it is being effective based on, the speeds that are out there right now. So I think it is benefiting the town, it's benefiting speed. The distance away, typically you try to do traffic tables, speed humps within typically between about 400 and 800 feet, somewhere within that range. If you're closer than that, that's when you kind of typically look at.
And then opposite,
one.
North of Pine Tree, just south of the bridge, you have a greater distance where you don't have speed humps. So that's where you have too many clumped together and then not enough. You want to space them out. You want them because you're trying to create a speed. So you, like you said, you got that big distance, people are going to speed up and then hit the bumps and slow down and speed up again. So it's just almost the same effect as a stop sign.
Correct. Yeah.
Joe, will our $200,000 get us down to that first speed hump?
We don't know yet. We're trying to get quotes from the county bid winner, Win and Son, but as soon as we get quotes, we'll let you know. But I have a question. Okay.
Absolutely. Go ahead,
Okay.
Joe.
My experiences with when we changed from humps to tables, there was regulations on how far they can be from a circular drive. We have a lot of circular drives. Is that's correct still, because they're wider, the tables?
Yeah, the tables are a little bit wider. They're 22 feet in width versus speed humps tend to be about 12 to 14 feet, although sometimes you get specialized older ones. They can be what you really want them is just to make sure they're not in someone's driveway.
Correct.
There's not a certain distance necessarily between the edge of a speed table and a circular driveway that it needs to be. It's a little bit of a balancing act where you kind of try to center it in the,
Okay.
the right locations, but there's not necessarily a minimum distance for that. There are distances you try to keep them away from, streets and so, intersecting
right.
streets and things like that, though.
Okay. So maybe we'll talk about them before, because they might be in their drive, in somebody's driveway.
Correct, and that's a location where you obviously don't want it within someone's driveway. You may want to move it if that's, that's happening.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Thank you.
All right, thank you,
Other
everybody.
questions?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you for your
Great
time
seeing,
tonight.
great seeing
Thank
you,
you.
Brian. He actually grew up in the neighborhood, right? You grew up here in town, didn't you? When you were a kid?
Not quite Lake Clark Shores, but over on Congress Avenue, probably about 2 miles from here. I went to Meadow Park Elementary School.
Very close.
You know the area. All right. Is this, Joe, are you up for the proposed?
Yes, yes.
We had a presentation of the
Hey.
proposed.
I've got a PowerPoint. I got to turn this thing on, right?
Oh, hey guys, been working overtime for you.
Thank you. Well, thank you. This kicks off our budget and season, or obviously for us, we've been working on this more than obviously this last month. But why do we call it the 25-26 budget? Because every city and every county's budget cycle or fiscal year is from October 1st to September 30th. It's not a calendar year. So just so you know that every county, the 67 counties, the 411 cities, they run from October 1st to September 30th. The state runs, as you know, July 1st to June 30th, but nobody runs on a calendar year. So that's why we always have 2 years on our budget. And if you have any questions, please feel free. This is our budget calendar, and the most important thing of today's meeting is what we have as listed as 1 and 2. 1 is we're approving the maximum millage rate, and we're approving the first and second date of the public hearings. As I said, everybody's trying to approve these budgets and millage rates, and they all have to be approved in September for all of those 400 and cities and counties throughout the whole state. So we can't conflict with any other county, school boards, any other taxing district. So we have to pick a date that's usually not the second Tuesday of the month. So that's why we picked those dates, which is Wednesday the 3rd and Monday, September 15th as our public hearing dates that have to be done in September. And it's very important that you attend those, because if we don't get them approved, we have to get all kinds of waivers from the state, which I've never done. It's not easy to get a budget approved if we don't get it approved in September. But again, the real reason of this meeting is just those 2 things that I listed on July 8th. All right, before we talk about next year budget, which starts October 1st, let's talk about accomplishments and what we're doing this year, which ends September 30th. The bridge. This is our biggest project. And believe it or not, it's a project, when you look at the materiality of it, doesn't happen for decades. Last time we had a project this large, we built this building. So this is a project that happen every 20 to 30 years. That's how big of a project it'll be. It's about $3 million, $400,000 from the state. This is a picture from today. It's actually a great picture because it's a milestone. They actually poured the bridge today. So that's very important. They never wanted to talk about timelines, to update the timelines until this was poured today. So we'll have a week meeting the end of this week, and we'll talk about timelines. But I've been keep talking about we need to open up before school starts, which is August 11th. They said it's still possible, or we can run into September. So we don't have a date, but the good thing is that pouring went on today, and it takes 2 weeks or so to cure, but they hopefully will multitask and work on the sides and remove the utilities from the water, put our water line under the bridge. So that's a big milestone. Other accomplishments we had, we want to talk about the CRA first. We had 3 goals. One was to do the community park lighting that already went in. Got a lot of good comments on that, but wait till we get to the daylight savings. It's in the summertime. That's going to be huge for using the pickleball courts and everything. The 6 poles went up. There's ample lighting. It's a great project. That I thought it went well. The next project is in progress, is the master plan for the North Park Memorial and for Pine Tree Park. And look who's walking in. So Cutler and Herring is walking in, but they're going to go over that at our CRA meeting, which is right after this. But that was our second goal. And our third goal was to consider hiring a consultant, which we'll talk about at our CRA meeting. This was a general fund project that we did late last year. As you can see, the before and after of the boat ramp improvements. It was a safety, aesthetics. Also, it was for efficiency. We can park more vehicles there, more trailers there. You see the curbs on both sides. You can't really see it, but there's already black rubber marks on there that those could have hit the fence, which trailers were hitting the fence, trucks were hitting the fence. It's a lot safer. There's another rumble strip there for safety, so you can see that at night.
Yes.
Believe it or not, people have driven to that lake at night.
Oh, I believe it.
When was the last time that happened, Chief? A few years ago, but they have driven into that lake. So, but as you can see, aesthetically, much more pleasing. It's a major amenity for the town. Great project. Talking about utilities, just talking about the size of our utility. Our general fund budget is about 4.9 million. Our utility budget is about 4.8 million. And when I talk about the new customers we're going to get in the next year, it's going to be larger than our general fund. So our utilities is actually becoming larger than our general fund. But as you all know, we have a site. It's between Lantana and Congress. It's near the high school there, Santa Lucia's High School. We have 1.5 acres there we use as a maintenance shop. And we decided this year, we're going to renovate that building on the left. That building is from 1960.
It looks like it.
Greg, you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when we built that, that was an old water plant site. We put a new roof on it, new windows, so we're basically renovating that whole building so we can use it more efficiently. And we store all our equipment there. And when we have water breaks in the middle of the night, we have to go there for equipment. So we didn't have any site lighting. It's not good for security, but it's also good for employee safety. Imagine rolling up to that site on the right when it's completely dark.
No.
So we put in those solar lights. They're very low lit when there's no motion, but then they hit that when you see motion. And so they're really very efficient. Believe it or not, that project was less than $3,000 to purchase 10 of those solar light fixtures. So really nice feature. When I get this project finished within the next couple of months, I'm going to invite you all out there. I'm going to, if you want to see the site, which is that building we can actually walk into now. Another major, I think one of the biggest accomplishments we had in the last 10 years is we're going to add, we always say that 2/3 of our customers and utilities are not in town. Now we're going to have 75% of our customers not in town because we're going to add 600 customers within the next year. We signed a developers agreement for a developer, Mar-a-Lago K, to put in 600 new customers. They will build a water system. They will put all the pipes, all the meters, all the infrastructure. It's about $11 to $12 million project. They will do it all for free and hand it over for us to, I think it was $1. I think Charlie put $1 in there. They will hand it, and that's very customary. The developer builds it all, puts it all in place. We have to maintain it forever. That's the negative, but we'll get 620 more customers. So that is a big accomplishment, and it's going to make our utility much more larger. That's why I said it's going to be larger than our general fund. We're finishing up finally our Lawrence Road project that was done in 2 phases. It's a couple $1 million, but that's how much water line we replaced on Lawrence Road. That's how far south we go down. On police, we thank you. The police department and the employees, the officers were very happy that you guys approved the radios. We started to program them, I heard. So this week, thank you. And also what we did was we passed that vessel noise ordinance. We just passed the parking ordinance. We also addressed some violations not only did we bring it up to code or to compliance, but within the last couple of years, we collected over $200,000 in fines. So we've done some major accomplishments of bringing people into compliance and collecting fines. All right, so let's talk about this budget. This budget is about it's proposed, it's going to change a lot because it's our first draft. The general fund is 4.9 million and change. It's 8% higher, and you'll see mainly it's due to capital projects that we're recommending. Right now, we have $14,000 extra in our surplus, so we can actually reduce the millage rate that little bit for 14,000, but that number is already changed. It changes every day because when you make an adjustment in the budget, it goes up and down. But hopefully, we'll have some money in there to actually lower the millage rate. But right now, we still have a little surplus. All our funds are budgeted, are balanced, which is general fund, utilities, and the CRA and infrastructure. All right, so this is a good graph because over 10 years ago, we've had the same millage rate of 6.2798, and that millage rate was there for 10 years. It didn't change, and then in 2023, we decided we're going to start working on reducing the millage rate. So for the last 2 years, I'm proud of this council and staff that we've done that commitment and we've done that. The last 2 years, we've lowered the millage rate, and we're now under 6, which is 5.9950. So we're hoping to do the same. We can't promise anything, but we'd like for tonight to approve the same millage rate of 5.9950 as we did the last 2 years, and maybe we can reduce it in September when all the numbers become finalized and all the unknowns become knowns. All right, go over what we're seeing in this budget. No staffing recommendations on any changes. We're asking for a 4% average merit increase. Last year, we got approved 5%. The inflation's lower, so we're asking for a little less. We're not asking for any benefit changes. You did approve one last month. We appreciate that extra $100 per month on the medical supplement. On the operating, we're negotiating still with Waste Management, and this is big. This is a big number. This is $300,000. And we collect 2.3 million to 2.5 million in property taxes. So over $300,000 goes right to Waste Management. So if you did what most other cities do and what the whole county does, most of the people, 45% of all of our lands in unincorporated Palm Beach County, they pay for waste collection in their taxes, or they pay for them in the water bills. So most cities, the vast majority of them pay for your garbage collection. If we did that, if you said tomorrow, let's just pass over that cost of what we're charging to each resident and property owner for what we collect in garbage, we can reduce the millage rate by 1 mil. We would be under 5 mils. That's how important that number is. We'd be about 4.9 mils instead of 5.9 mil if we just did what other cities do. So just want to let you know that is a big benefit in the town, to live in this town, that we pay for your garbage collection and your recycling.
Jennifer, you said it was 300,000 is what we pay Waste Management?
It's roughly 300,000. So property insurance, it's unknown. The numbers have looked good for other bids we've seen, but we just got an appraisal of all of our assets, and obviously that went up. So we're estimating, and we won't know until September if there's going to be an increase or not. And that's $300,000 by itself too. So that's a very material number. But like I said, most of our increases are going into capital. We're in infrastructure. We're looking at paving part of Pine Tree Lane and repaving it. We're looking at possibly putting in new playground equipment in Community Park. We're looking at replacing 2 police vehicles. Just so you know, the average city keeps a police car for 3 to 5 years. Our cars are mainly 2020, so they're already 5 years old. And it takes at least a year to procure a car because you have to order them, you have to equip them. It takes a while to get them in service. So we need to start replacing those cars. Obviously, we can replace 1 or 2 a year. We got 2 in right now. We'll see what makes it at the very end of the budget, but right now we have 2.
Do we purchase them or lease them?
We'll do what the best deal is, and we look at both. But we don't have a recommendation yet. We're looking at both. All things being equal, I think the chief and I, or the chiefs and I, do like purchasing, but we'll see how it rolls out. And the problem with leasing right now is the interest rates are a little high, so that does affect leasing. But whatever the best deal is, we'll take it. We look at both.
Understood.
Public works truck, we need a mid-range truck, not one of those large trucks. So like a Ford Ranger, that's what roughly we would pay for something like that.
Is that something we're replacing?
No,
We don't have one.
we don't have one. He uses basically an electrical,
Is that little cart?
that little cart, and it's getting very old. So,
Okay.
and what's not in the budget that we've discussed a lot is retirement changes. We'll keep talking about that, but that's not in the budget. All right, this is the part where I become an economist and I talk about the economy a little bit, and it's a little bit more detailed in the handout, but it's always good to talk about what we're seeing, all the way from the national level, the global level, all the way down to Lake Clark Shores. Obviously, you guys hear about the economy. The economy, in my opinion, is healthy. We have low unemployment. It's at 4.1 this month. Anything under 5 is full employment. We have record stock markets. Just last week we hit records. Our inflationary rate has been reduced to the mid 2s. So all those signs are good. What's to worrisome a little bit is obviously these trade tensions, these tariff threats and conflicts that we have in the Middle East and in Ukraine. Those all could blow up in the wrong direction, and hopefully they won't, but those all can affect the markets. All right, so how does that affect the state of Florida and Palm Beach County? The Palm Beach County is doing very well. We're seeing slowdowns in other housing markets along Florida, even in Orlando area, but not in Palm Beach County. Because why? I think it's because we're seeing still industries moving in. Palm Beach, Wall Street South, you've heard of that. And the healthcare industry is investing heavily in Palm Beach County. So those two things is creating a large demand on our housing, and that is keeping our housing elevated and stable. And inventory is very low. So I think that's going to continue, but we don't know for sure. How are we doing? So obviously we talked about this many times about Pine Tree Bridge is putting pressures on our reserves on a short-term basis. Reserves, that's what they're made for. They're made for using them when you do a project or for unexpected items. They shouldn't be used for operating expenses. So this is exactly what you're supposed to use reserves for, projects that comes up every 20 to 30 years, and for things that are unforeseen. Other things that worrisome, is the representative said, was that the state legislature on reform or anything on our property tax structure. That is definitely something to watch. But if anything shifts, if we go into recession, we always, as we do for emergencies, we always plan for the worst and hope for the best. So we always talk about what will happen, and we don't want to get into long-term contracts or anything just in case we have to shift gears if we do go into a recession in the near future, which is, there's not signs of it. I'm not saying there is at this time. So that is basically just a very brief overview of the budget and the budget process, which I've met with all of you individually, and we'll go over the budget more in detail in the next couple of months. But if anybody has any questions, I'm here. But again, the motion is just to approve those two things, the maximum millage rate and the date of the public hearings.
So Joe, just quickly, adding in 620 new customers to bring the utilities department to 75% of the people who live outside of the town of Lake Clark Shores. Those customers are also contributing to the enterprise fund, which funds a lot of the studies, implementation, planning, surveying, all those things for septic to sewer,
100%.
which is a huge benefit. So I know you say the downside of maintaining that, but that's just the cost of doing business.
Oh yeah, it's a definite win. I just didn't want to say it's.
Yes.
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
there's Every
So
every win has a negative.
It's a good benefit.
It's a very good benefit.
Yes.
And Joe, when's that supposed to come online? When are we expected to start receive revenues from that? And what are the expectation of what that will look like?
Their kickoff meeting is actually this week, but they believe the project will take 18 months, 12 to 18 months.
Mm. And what?
I would go with the 18 months.
Yeah. And any expectation on revenue? Have you proposed or kind of looked at?
We're just starting to chart it a little bit, so I don't really want to. We're talking about obviously there'll be some expenses, but it'll be a profit. It'll be a positive to the utility fund.
Joe, could you clarify one thing for the residents? Because you mentioned that the fines for, I believe you said code enforcement that were collected were 200,000. And I don't want the residents to have the impression that code enforcement hearings are a revenue source, that most of those fines would be the result of foreclosure or other.
Yeah, one of them took decades, and they're basically from two property owners.
Right. I just don't want the people to think that's a money grab.
It's not and that's not our purpose here. Our purpose is to get people in compliance. But
it was two properties that were grossly
right.
Violations.
In bad.
One was in decades.
Poor condition.
That, yes, took decades to resolve. So thank you, Charlie, for helping us with that one.
I think that ended with a very good result.
Yeah.
Compared to where we could have been.
I'm pleased with it. Thank you.
Any other questions for Joe?
Nope.
Do we have?
I'll make a motion that we make a proposed millage rate of 5.9950 to start.
And can
And
do the rest
the
of the motion
first-
Time and date.
and set the dates?
Yeah, well, and setting the date, I was going to do that separate, but if you want them together, that's fine.
That's
So I'll
fine.
make a
Fine.
motion also that we set the dates for the 3rd of September and the 15th of September as well.
You have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And is that a aye?
Mhm.
Motion approved.
Thank you.
That's an aye.
Aye,
Aye,
aye.
aye.
Status reports. Do you want to go first, Joe?
Sure. I can go first. The next meeting will be on August 12th, which is our regular second Tuesday.
Hold on. Do you want to go first or do you need to go first? Okay.
Sorry, Chief. And now that you just approved those two dates, those are the 3rd and the 15th, our September meetings. Next week, we have our senior club. We're going to have a hurricane preparedness. So if anybody wants to review your hurricane, and again, I always offer this to any resident, especially residents that are new to the area or coming from another state. If you want to go over you got to make a plan. So if you have some questions about hurricane preparedness, just call me. We'd happy to help you through that. But we're going to go over that to have a plan to on our next meeting, which is next week on the 16th. Our fishing camp is at the end of the month, which is a week long, July 28th to August 1st. We're still working on those change orders on for the bridge with the contractor and the engineer who's the inspection firm. Hopefully we'll have something in August for you, but I can't promise you that, but we're trying to work on something that we can get to you as quickly as possible to resolve those two issues. We have a lot of good news from the utility department. As you can see, the health department came over, inspected all of our systems. We have 3 systems. As I said, we're going to have a 4th, but they found no deficiencies, and our water quality all passed with no violations also too. Both of those things are on our website. We're still working on, believe it or not, we're still working with the software company on setting up payments, electronic payments. Again, it's not us. We apologize, but it's basically the vendor telling us how to do it. They're mandating this, and the only way we can get out of it, we have to buy a new software program that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we have to be patient, but we're not going to charge any late charges or shut off any of our customers during this process. The other things that we're going to bring are working out a permit, a little bit of an adjustment within an ordinance, maybe in August. If everything goes well, we're reviewing it right now. This is some pictures we had of our food truck event. And then we'd love to schedule, and it can be this month or early September or whenever you guys pick. Or I can send out some dates and you guys can pick. I can't pull them with dates, right? I've had that opinion before from another attorney that I can pull them for dates.
Yes, you can.
Okay, so I normally don't poll you. You guys know that, but I can poll for dates. So if I'd love to schedule a shade meeting for bargaining with our union contract, which is expiring on May 31st of next year.
We practically got a shade meeting tonight.
We can start now. You're right. So do you want, what do you prefer, Mayor? Do you want us to send out some dates and then we'll take some votes that way? Or do you guys want to discuss that now? When do you want to have that meeting?
Do you guys need more time to come up with dates for your availability?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll send out an email and with some dates and one of those surveyors and come up with a date.
Do we have a month or week that we're shooting for?
It could be anytime I'm ready, so it could be anytime you guys want, but I'm not in a rush either. So if early September works for most of you, I'll put some dates of that nature, or late this month or August. Thank you.
Chief Smith?
My report's attached. If any of you have any questions, feel free to ask. Assistant Chief and I are answering questions.
There's also a combination from House Representative Deborah Tendrance for congratulating Chief Smith on the Lifetime Achievement Award. Also, Palm Beach State College wanted to acknowledge all of the town manager, Joe, Chief Smith, and Chief England for their assistance with their support with the police academy.
Thank you.
And you're up. Chief Ronald?
Well, happy belated 4th of July.
Welcome.
Hope everybody had a great time. Our department was very busy on the 4th of July. We had 23 fire calls within the 24 hours. 9 of them were firework related. We had 6 injuries, 4 injuries, 2 of them being of transports. So now that we passed that event, hopefully we'll look to better times. First thing I had in here was hurricane season. Town Manager Labella just mentioned that if you don't know what you need, you don't know what to prepare, pbcfr.org, our website has a full panel of things you need to set up. Test your generators outside. Don't keep them in your garage. Keep them away from your home. It's most likely what we see because carbon monoxide is quite odorless gas that can harm people, and they usually keep their generators in the garage, which does lead to injury later on. We installed 181 carbon monoxide and smoke detectors in the month of June within my 5 municipalities. You guys are one of the municipalities. I don't know exactly how many people signed up from Lake Arc Shores, but we did have 181 total signups. I just got back from Vegas 2 weeks ago at the NFPA conference, and the main topic was lithium-ion batteries and EV vehicles. I know we've spoken about it before. There's still, what it seems like nationwide, there's still no cure for this. There's still no answer. But if you do see us, like as I mentioned before, if you do see an EV vehicle on fire, we're letting it consume itself. We're letting it put itself out. We'll put out the Class A combustible, and then we want the batteries to put themselves out. What's happening is if the fires are in the battery compartment's under the vehicle, it's about thousands of AA battery size, thousands of them, and they're compartmentalized, so we can't really get in there with the water. So what's proven effective is to let it burn itself initially, we let it do its job, and within an hour it would be out, as opposed to if we fight the fire, it'd be about 12 hours.
How common are you finding a lot of them, or are there very few?
Very few. Again, according to the studies, it's a quarter for 1 in 100,000 sold. So the numbers are very low, but they are dangerous, and they do self-ignite. They've had them up to reignite 4 months later, and reignite in transport. So the FDNY, Fire Department from New York, had a task force there, spoke about it a lot. They do face this problem a lot in New York, but they face it more with e-bikes and e-scooters, and it's something that's increasing here in South Florida. So if you do have those, keep them away from the home. What happens with those? They get damaged from falling. Battery starts taking hits. We start charging them incorrectly. We charge them from 0 to 1,001, and that's what's happening. That cycle of 0 to 100, 0 to 100, and the constant damage from them falling is what's causing these fires. And third-party batteries, any third-party batteries, the bricks that you find, those are proving to self-ignite. So if you're buying this stuff, try to buy legit ones. The the glance routing that I mentioned last meeting is doing very well. They already installed 181 sensors out of the 220 they're going to install within our area. And this is again for the red lights, the glance routing, preemptive routing. We're shooting for September 1st to go live with it, and it looks like we're way ahead of schedule. So that's something good that's going to improve our response times, which I'll lead into. We had 32 calls, response times average of 722, which is about average for, and our turnout times are great at 45 seconds. I'm hoping that number goes down once this glance preemptive routing goes into effect. And that's that. Last meeting was June 3rd. June 4th was the first game of the Panther series. I said on record, Panthers in 6.
And you
they won
predicted it.
6.
You got it. I thought about you.
Should have been a betting person. That's all I got.
Thank you. Definitely long overdue with the glance.
Yep.
Okay. Where we at? Sorry. Oh, I should know this. Any council comments? Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, our Charlie.
First, let me say thank you for allowing me to be absent from the May meeting to attend my grandson's high school graduation at Clemson, and to be
Congrats.
absent from the June meeting to recover from hip replacement surgery.
Welcome back.
And it's good to be back. My report is included in your packet, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have concerning it.
Any council questions, comments?
Nope.
Any additional comments from the council?
Nope.
John?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Chiefs, all three of you, thank you. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your commitment to this community. Chief, the place to be on police day is in your office for pizza. That's next time I get the memo, I'm gonna show up, knock on the door, my plate ready to go, Chief, for some good hard-earned pizza. But seriously, thank you guys for that. Obviously, our goal is to get that millage rate down as home prices continue to go up, revenues continue to come in. Obviously, we've got some challenges here within the town, so big projects and some things happening that we need to pay for, but our hope is to get that millage rate lower. So just know that is what Joe and I have been talking about in great detail. How do we get that millage rate down? And the reason I asked about that water project that's coming online, really just to see how much revenue that's going to produce to help again in the future make sure the millage rate stays low as we generate more revenue sources within the town. Chief, also, we haven't heard anybody come back since that one meeting about the jet skis. Look like you pretty much put a stamp in that. So I guess problem solved. It was a riot in here, and well, we haven't seen anyone since then, and I appreciate you guys taking care. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll keep that in the family, a little secret. Thanks for taking care of that. And happy belated 4th to everyone. Hope you had a great holiday, and thank you guys.
Chief Smith, congratulations on your Lifetime Achievement Award. I wasn't here last month, but it only took a lifetime. You did it. You did it. Congratulations. Thank you.
So I have two questions, really. One was about the presentation on the safety of the roads and what we have and don't have. And I have been asked many times, and we've heard the comments many times about the yellow stripes. And since we've heard it from Mr. Kelly's mouth now, I wondered if there was a way to gently inform our residents about what it means, what the yellow stripes actually mean in our various forms of wonderful communication that we have, so that people understand they can move to the side and cross the road if there is a pedestrian near, and they don't have to worry that they're breaking the law.
I like it. And we're working on a campaign when we ever figure out when we're going to do, the paving. So I'll add that.
Okay.
I like it. Thank you.
The other question I have was about Mr. Pinsky's presentation, and Representative Hendricks still here. So I just want to make sure that I understood. Was a letter actually sent? It's the secretary's office, correct? Or was he saying that we, on behalf of the town, could do that?
Both. Both.
My office sent a letter to the secretary directly, so you can get them to come out and do a site visit and, really kind of show up and see what we're working on here.
So we could additionally be sending one as the town council and mayor.
You could, perhaps even maybe give us a few more days to follow up with them and see if it's even necessary, or you can double down and really show how important this is to everyone.
I appreciate that. But I do think this is an important enough cause that I would like to have it on the record in some capacity. And I think that we should be sending that letter as well. Maybe that's something Richard can assist with.
I also like it. Can I give you some options? Well, one option is you can do a motion that the mayor signs a letter, the same letter, because the letter that I saw is only signed by the representative and the senator. It didn't have the mayor's signature. Oh, the one I saw today had both of your signatures. You took it off. Right. But now he said we should possibly send one our own. So I agree with you. And I agree with him. I think that's what he was saying. So why don't you make it a motion if you like that option and say, I'd like to have the mayor's, unless you want all 5 of you to sign it.
I would like all 5 of us.
Okay, then that was my second option. So then I don't need a motion. So I'll have the same letter and I'll pass it around and get all 5 of you to sign it. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure.
That's all my comments.
Okay.
Excellent idea.
Mhm.
I want to congratulate the entire police department, because it seems like there was an awful lot of officers getting specialized training in the memo. So I really appreciate y'all staying up to date and being on the forefront of the latest and greatest methods. And I want to thank whoever lives in the middle of Pine Tree Lane for an amazing fireworks display on Friday night. Somebody really put up a lot of fireworks. And I'm glad it was a safe time and a great celebration in town. And that's all I've got.
They want to remain anonymous.
Yes. There's a pile that stretches from me to you of spent shells in their driveway waiting for garbage pickup. You know exactly which house it came from.
I know who.
Yeah, we know who it is. I want to take a special thanks to the staff for working on the extra budget. I know they've been short staffed and still got this budget out early. So, and it is very helpful in setting the millage and helping us move forward with trying to be due diligent with the spending of the town. We want to keep the town, keep improving the town, but we don't want to be wasteful with the spending. We know the roads need to be done, the bridge is on its way, and right behind us we got the parks looking up, and we want to be very mindful of how we spend the money. So thank you to the staff for doing your work. thank you for the chiefs for keeping on top of the waterways. I know that's been a task. Do we have any update on their future training for your staff?
So we have 2 officers who are currently registered with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office for their single. I think my voice is louder than it is sometimes. Currently, we have 2 officers who are assigned to a single engine vessel training that's being conducted by the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office next month. So when they get done, they will be certified.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we're on to CRA.
So we at least get to stand up.
Oh, stand up, stretch your legs.
Okay, I'm good.
Got the blood circulating?
I'm good.
Whenever you're ready, Mary, if you can do roll call, please.
Chair Bridget Keating,
Present.
Vice Chair Christy Mosbach,
Here.
Commissioner Taylor Materio,
Here.
Commissioner Gregory Freebold,
Here.
Commissioner John Maples.
Here.
Okay, do we have any audience comments? Do you have any online or email comments? No. Okay, do we have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Great.
All those in favor?
Aye, absolutely.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Joe, you're up.
All right, this is obviously the 2 pages of the budget for the CRA. Want to point out a couple things, if I may. The first page, the first thing that I notice is our values didn't go up that much this year. As you can see, they almost look like the same numbers on 25 and 26, but they only went up $300,000. That was disappointing because in 24, I was raving on how much our values went up for that corridor. So this year, sometimes the appraiser doesn't appraise every property owner that they do it in areas. So maybe they just didn't get out to Lake Clark Shores, but they were pretty much stayed the same. So the revenue stayed the same. The other major change is I'd like to put in a contingency like the other funds as for about approximately $300,000. So not that we'll spend the money, and Christy had great questions on our budget meeting. She said, all these numbers and you don't spend any money. Yes, that's how the CRA works. We don't spend the money. It just goes into reserves when we don't spend it. But to have that contingency there, just in case something does come up, let's say you want to do something on the master plan, you want to do it next year, or something comes up on a property that you want to purchase or leverage some developer into helping them develop something, you have the funds, or at least some of the funds right there in the budget. So I would recommend having that option in there, or having that ability to have some money in there, because we have now reserves that we can utilize. That doesn't mean we're going to spend it, and our reserves will just keep going up. But something that I always like to remind ourselves is a good question with the mayor. We got to keep reminding everybody, the CRA money cannot be used to pave projects. This can be used on the corridor, just like utility money can't be used for paving projects. It's a little bit, so all these funds mostly can't commingle their funds. So you'll see the CRA, some of the comments were, we should build some more, use this money for roads or something else. We can't do that. We can only use it on the actual area that's spelled out in the CRA. And it mainly has to be brick and mortar or design, which we have coming up in our next agenda item. So it has to be something that's constructive. It can't be maintenance or repairs. It has to be something that infrastructure or design. So just wanted to point out those 2 things on the budget, but the rest of it's very simple on the budget. So
Mayor, if I may, Joe, how did you come up with the, obviously I'm a huge fan of a contingency fund and emergency fund. That's a no-brainer in my world, but how did you come up with 300,000? How did you come up with that number? What math or what logic or?
I was just looking at what money we had. We have about 350,000 roughly in reserve. So just to have it available if we need it.
Okay. And I guess why wouldn't you make it 500,000 or $1 million?
We don't have that kind of money in the reserves.
Okay.
So it's from reserves. It says from reserves. So we're taking out 323,000 from.
So just educate me a bit here. So why wouldn't you just leave it in reserves? Why do you have to give it a name contingent and move it in there? Can you do the same thing, moving it from reserves to execute any emergency that we have because it's in reserves?
One of the reasons is that if you leave it in reserves and you then need to budget it, you have to have a budget hearing
Okay,
and
that's it.
adopt it by a resolution amending your budget. If it's already in a line item within the budget, you can by motion move funds within line items that are already budgeted.
Which is why we did that contingency fund on our general books a few years back, a couple of years back or something.
So it's a much simpler process.
Yeah.
It is.
Thank you, Mr. Scheck. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yes. Other people had that same question on this board. So it was a very common question. So it's a good question.
Any other questions, council questions? Okay,
So is there a motion on that one?
there's not,
No.
no, there's no
No, just a
motion.
presentation. It'll be approved in September.
Okay. Okay, now unfinished business, update on Memorial Park, Pine Tree Park and North Park Survey, Cutler and Herring. You're in the hot seat. Mhm.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to see everyone
Mhm.
tonight. Nicole Plunkett with Kotler and Herring, and I also have Megan Michelson here with Kotler and Herring. It's been a couple of months since we've been here, and we're excited to give an update on what's going on with our Parks Master Plan. So the last time we met was back in March, and that was when we had just completed our very first community survey. And we're going to go through some of the specifics about how the second survey that you've tasked us with doing did, along with how many respondents we had, what demographics we hit, and what methods that we used to try to capture a wider audience. And so we followed your feedback. We worked really closely with your town manager and deputy town manager as well, and your communications consultant, Elliot Cohen.
Yes.
And so we're going to walk through a couple of the things that we did. We're going to walk you through the survey itself and then tell you about our next steps. So for tonight,
There's a little delay.
I think I remember this from last
Mhm.
That's part of my infrastructure problems is these computers.
Aha.
There we
There it
go.
is.
So I know that all of us in the room here are very familiar with the locations of the parks, but for purposes of anyone just tuning in for the first time or just here tonight for the first time, just a quick location of our 3 parks. These include North Park on the north side of Forest Hill Boulevard, Pine Tree Park, and Memorial Park on the south side of Forest Hill Boulevard. And now I'm going to turn this over to Megan Michelson. She is a designer, landscape designer within our office and has had her fingerprints all over this project from a design standpoint. And I know last time you heard from McKenna West, who was looking at the analytics, but now we've brought into our designers for this phase of the process.
Awesome.
So take it away, Megan. Just a little bit of a delay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm a little short. There we go. Hi, as Nicole said, I'm Megan. I'm one of the designers at Cutler and Herring. And upon releasing the second survey I worked very closely with Joe, your town manager, and Emily, your deputy town manager, to prepare and release the Your Parks, Your Vision campaign. Elliot, the communication consultant, not only put together this fabulous website, but also promoted the online survey that was via social media ads on Instagram, as well as Facebook, and mailers to each of the residents. This was a very intentionally targeted campaign towards the younger audience that we discussed last time we talked council in March. So that precisely did a geolocation and a demographic location on these different social sites. This helped us reach some of the age groups that we were trying to target with the second survey. We saw an increase in the total number of participants with about 100 more participants than the first survey. Comparatively, the first survey had 187, or roughly 5% of the Lake Clark Shores population, and the second was 275 takers, or 7.7% of the Lake Clark Shores population. So specifically, there was a higher average of participants altogether, and we were able to target that 26 to 35 and 36 to 45 age range, a higher participation rate amongst them. So the nature of the survey was short and simple. This was per the request that we talked about last time in March. And all the questions, besides a final open response, were preference questions with suggestive images, and they were all visual in nature. So this first one here showed two concepts diagrams, which defines the park's core layout and circulation, serving as a foundation for design development. So residents were able to report on which they simply found more appealing, just off of first glance, reading the legend and looking at leaders. And majority of takers preferred option B. For the sake of conversation, I'll quickly go over the two. So we put in different design elements in each of the parks, some having some similar elements like social gatherings or amphitheaters. Some were more passive in nature, while they had wildlife viewing banks, and some were more active, where they had open lawns and entertainments or concrete trails and harder hardscape areas. The second question, residents were asked about their preference for landscaping. Option A illustrates a native, more eco-friendly landscape, and the second being a formal manicured look. Preference for one or the other was pretty much an even split, while the majority wanted a blend of both. So from open responses, about 20 plus respondents requested to preserve existing trees, use native plants, maintain green space, and they had repeated emphasis on the need for shade in the Florida heat, especially during the summers. The next question, respondents were asked about their preference for shaded seating. Option A illustrates an art-like shade structure, B, a classic pergola, and C were shaded sails. Majority of residents preferred the pergola option. There it goes. Majority preferred the classic pergola, and the second runner-up was for the shade sails. There was, in the open responses, a consistent safety and worry about the unhoused population and concerns being so close to I-95, and calling for open air designs or active monitoring while having shaded and open concept shades. The next question, respondents were asked if they prefer an upgraded Heart Trail equipment from what exists currently in the park system, or if they would like to upgrade to a new workout circuit. Again, there's a pretty much even split amongst amongst the options, but from looking at this, I see this as a majority of 66% of takers who would like some form of upgraded equipment in the parks.
Can I ask, how big is the one on the right? I mean, how much land does that take up? It looks big from the picture.
So currently in the park system now, we have the Heart Trail in Pine Tree Park, and we have spots of equipment there. This would be the same concept where they would be single equipment spots along Heart Trail. Option B would be one full circuit, and that can come anywhere of the size of a smaller room to, you know, as large as half of a football field. So
So it wouldn't be like that format. It would be more along the lines that we have now, but with a more upgraded type physical fitness equipment.
yes, ma'am. The next question, respondents were asked if they would like to see landscaping along Forest Hill Boulevard as a buffer to protect noise against traffic. The first option being a natural landscape, dense and thick, or if they preferred a full manicured landscape, and majority preferred the natural landscape option. The children's play area also had a pretty even split amongst natural play or traditional playground, but most preferred playground in the park. So in the community events and gathering spaces section, we requested from residents their input on areas within the park that would be designed to bring people together for social connection, cultural activities, and shared experiences. And residents could select up to 2 options on this question, so they were only limited to one of these 4 options. The first being picnic shelters and gazebos. The second is event space, open lawn or open gathering space. C, space for food trucks or small vendors, and D, a performance stage or an amphitheater. The respondents, again, were barely split. You can see that the performance stage or amphitheater had high in votes, but in the open responses, there was more than 20 respondents who were in opposition to the amphitheater and stages or anything that would create or generate loud noises in gatherings, and they had concerns about maintaining that peaceful park or passive park intent that we had in the beginning of the survey. They also, 35 or more respondents had concerns about parking and brought up issues with the lack of parking for such events. Some proposed using specific lots or adding limited parking spaces specifically for residents. And the waterfront and recreation section, we requested input on these features or elements near the bodies of water in Lake Clark Shores that supported public access, enjoyment, and recreation in or around the water. And residents could select up to 2 or more options on this question as well. A was a kayak and paddleboard launch. B is fishing areas. C, boat docks, and D being a scenic overview. Respondents favored scenic overlooks and the kayak launch. And I think this is due to having about 15 or more respondents reporting on mixed opinions on the boat docks. They supported the kayak and boat access, but they feared that it would attract non-resident jet skiers and noise and pollute the lakes. So we went ahead and doubled down again on the choice of the preferred concepts by the residents. We asked which concept they preferred again, while considering now all of the previous questions they were just asked with the different photo options. And again, residents preferred concept B. They even had a 5% increase in favor for it. And I thought this was very sweet. There were over 11 different responses that gave positive feedback, just simply being asked on their input, while many residents expressed pride and enthusiasm for these future improvements. So
Awesome.
yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open the floor back up to Nicole to talk about next steps.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Megan. So I think just in wrapping up here and thinking back to March when we last spoke on this, I know Councilmember Maples said it really well. I said it multiple times to over-communicate in the many different methods that we can reach out to the residents here in Lake Clark Shores. And I think that we had a huge success in executing that, related to the mailers, related to creating the website and working with your amazing staff. They're just awesome and so easy to get a hold of. So I appreciate Joe and Emily and the staff. They're just wonderful in this. But to over communicate, I think we accomplished that. And of course, we increased the number of respondents and we were able to get some really great feedback. As far as next steps, I know that we provided all these results right before the 4th of July holiday. And so we're here with a handful of questions about next steps and just to request some feedback on some of your initial thoughts and reactions to the responses and to put together a game plan as to where we see the next steps going on this.
I have a question, please. What features about option B do you think led it to be voted on more than option A?
Could we put that slide back up? I know just off the top of my head, potentially, one of the things that was targeted in that was, I believe option B had keeping the existing Memorial Starburst in Memorial Park. And if you go back to the results in survey number 1 that we did back earlier this year, that was one of the common themes, that it was highly voted to keep that rather than to redo that. So it's possible that that was why.
I think the Starburst is in option A, which was voted less.
No.
Starburst is gone.
The Starburst is still there in option A, but it's more of a redesign.
Oh, I thought that was that right there.
Yeah, more of a redesign. And then it's also important to note too that when we went into this and designing these two concepts, and Megan, you are welcome to come up anytime too, but when we came up with these two concepts, even though we're getting the feedback that, you know, some folks like option A, some folks like option B, is evident within the individual responses and within the open responses that some residents like some parts of A and some parts of B. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to pull together what those major pieces are, including a handful of different questions that we have for you as to, do we want to include this, yes or no, and almost mesh options A and B together to come up with an even better final master plan for your parks plan.
That was going to be my one of my comments is B, like the children's play area was a definite. No one said, no, we don't want children to play, right? They just couldn't really decide on the look of it, but B doesn't really have like a designated children's play area. So it would be a miss to me. Maybe just because a little one. But yeah, that was going to be my question is, how do we, what's the next thing here where we kind of combine the two?
Yeah, and I think for us, the information that we would need from you and direction from you is about some of those specific elements, either that the residents voted on, and I actually have a list that we can walk through. So just to get some initial feedback and some direction on everything related to parking, playgrounds, amphitheater, fitness equipment, and sort of to have those discussions so that we can decide, yes, we're going to do it. No, we definitely don't want to do that. And we can have some firm decisions moving forward on this final plan.
My other thought about the boat docks, I know some people are going to be like very strongly opinionated about it, as they should be, but what does like maintaining that or overseeing that, wouldn't we have to have a staff member that was like there making sure?
I hope
they
not.
just like, don't we have to make sure they're always safe? And I don't know, I just feel like that sort of becomes a liability in some capacity, or like something else that like we have to have our police patrol potentially. I don't know, I just, you know, it's not like our boat ramp where people go to a public space or their home.
Well, I was going to keep my comments to the end, but I think what I heard from other residents, and I agree, that area where you have it over in Pine Tree Park isn't the best option. It's more, if the decision is to do a boat, some kind of boat access for parking, is to do it over on the Memorial side. One, because you have lake access. That's where they have all the fishing tournaments. And I think you could have a narrow, you don't need to have the full on parking, that more of a narrow type pier-like walkway where you can just come tie up on a piling versus having the formal thing. Because most of the time it's informal. It's not going to be used all the time. It's going to be in the fishing tournament. It's going to be when people come up for the Christmas tree. If that's decided,
Yeah,
I don't
which
know.
is exactly what I'm thinking about is how many people are going to want to do that. And
Quite a
just the
few.
issues at that. I boat all the time,
Right.
and you know, it came.
And I
it's
read,
pretty crazy.
I read in there, I don't know what the percentage of number was, but there was a positive response for the boats. And everybody heard is, I totally agree, that area is terrible for the jet skis coming around, the boats coming around. That's definitely not an ideal place for it. I have a lot of other ideas, but I think if I could follow up with emails, because I think I don't want to take up the time of the CRA. And I think all of us probably have our own
Well, and to be
ideas.
clear, I'm not opposed to the boat dockage. I
right.
just have questions about the overall
No.
liability.
No.
Yeah, operations. of it.
100%. Go ahead.
I think my biggest, and I like that, I think moving that to the other side just for safety reasons for kayaks and all that other stuff could be an issue. But parking was my biggest deal. I think a lot of other residents would come if they could park somewhere or they didn't have to like figure that piece out. And I think that's a big part, especially when you have an amphitheater, you have live music. A lot of people want to come, but like if it's here, you know, they can figure parking out between here, the church, the park, or the whatever. So it's what's the solution for that? Because that's like almost one of the biggest pieces of this thing that's missing. Because I think what we have, people are excited about it and people want to show up, but they have nowhere or how, you know, or everyone invests in a golf cart and then there's golf carts everywhere or what. I don't know the solution, but that's kind of what I feel like is the biggest glaring opposition to having this be extremely successful and being able to be used by all residents. Because some of our older residents, you know, they can't really walk it out. They need to go kind of right there and jump out and be a part of the community. So I don't know, hopefully you can speak to that.
Yeah, so on option B, if you look along Pine Tree there, where it says food trucks and vendor plaza, right there is more of a hardscape area where if you're not putting food trucks or if you're not utilizing it for an event, and I hear what you're saying because we would need to utilize this for an event, but in the off hours, that those areas could potentially, again, with engineering and traffic review to make sure that we meet all the separation distances from that intersection there, could potentially, you could line that area with a handful of parallel spaces where vehicles could park in there. And then I know in our field trip going around looking through the area, there's that also potential of the town-owned lot for overflow parking on the south side of Forest Hill Boulevard as well. So I hear you. That's definitely a big constraint with this particular project. But I think if you did want to move forward with the potential of a handful of parallel spaces on Pine Tree, that is one option to consider.
Just because we've been doing this for so long. Did we ever ask about parking in any of our surveys? Like specifically like outlining a space that might be.
We did not. We did ask in the very first survey how people get to the parks. And I do have the results from that one. I believe the biggest results were either walking or golf cart. And that makes sense though, because nobody's going to be able to park anyways.
There's no parking there.
There's no parking. Yeah.
So, and I can tell you even golf carting when we were doing Christmas up there. I mean, the police do an amazing job getting everyone in and out, but there's cars and golf carts and it's already, I'm just wondering if we might have missed a key element in not, and I know that this isn't final by any means, but I also feel like the amphitheater, if we're gonna keep the flag in the front, like all that should, like this almost feel like somewhat reversed to me in some way, like the actual spaces. And that's probably just because you designed this, right? No? Yes. It's beautiful. But because you haven't been here during these events, you don't see how we actually activate the space. But, you know, we build a stage across from our flag and our tree and speak on it. Well, if the amphitheater is in the park, the next park over, why wouldn't we use that, you know, that stage for our big events and holidays? And we want to celebrate that at our historic Starburst spot. So there's lots of just like, and maybe more getting into the meat and potatoes of it with us. I don't know for that understanding, but I am kind of wondering if we missed something about parking.
On the Pine Tree side, that park there in the middle where it exists at the moment, there is matting underneath the grass to allow for overflow parking. So that was done a long time ago, just to allow the cars to park. It doesn't create ruts and all that kind of stuff, and it recovers quickly. We have a kayak launch here and a canoe launch and a handicap launch that very rarely gets used. A majority of the residents who kayak and canoe here have them in their yards, and that's how they do that. So that's food for thought with that.
I agree with you. My desk looks out at the lake. I might see a kayak every 2 weeks going back and forth.
Well, shoot,
most
it's
of
not
them
safe
have them.
out there.
What's
Behind
that?
your house.
It's not safe.
Yeah.
With jet skis or boats. Like, dude, I was out there with my daughter kayaking once, and we literally got the waves were coming in, and I was like, "Well, we're gonna take a swim, honey."
Yeah, there's quite a few people, because I'm the same way. I'm a avid kayaker. I would kayak more often, but sometimes you get these boats that got a wake that will knock your socks off, and I can
Yeah.
swim, so it's not that issue. It's just I don't have the enjoyment of the kayak.
No.
That's just bad etiquette, period.
100%.
But you've seen the floating docks?
Yes. Yeah.
That would be, I know we're seeing this photograph, but I don't believe any of the respondents saw it. We'll never be able to park like that. You're not going to back your boat in. You're going to nose your boat in. And just food for thought, the design for, it's never going to work on the Pine Tree side. It's a blind spot. It's too skinny. There's not enough. But on the other side of Memorial Park, there's a space there where you could put floating docks and then use it. You're going to hear a lot of the people want to come by boat for like, even
Yes.
just for the kids fishing, for different events
I hear it a
that are
lot.
going to go on there in the future, just for different things. So that's something to consider too. And then, I mean, that's really about it. Other than that, it's open. I personally don't want to use the lot there, Joe, on Westlake and Forest Hill is overflow parking. I know a lot of people say that, but we need to really vet that baby before we, make it something that's not going to produce for the town.
I agree.
So-
I agree with you. You know that.
And I don't want to implement parking fees.
I had a hybrid solution. I don't know if it's a solution or a suggestion, to have a walkway, a little bridge walkway from that park over into that area for overflow parking. However, also use that lot for some kind of mom and pop type business for anything that we have, like fish and tackle, stuff that would be pertain to the lake, not renting kayaks, not renting, because that is a liability, but just necessities for our water. I don't know if that's even something that people
Now,
want. but-
Mayor, you're a firefighter. Think about that piece of property. I just saw Chief Martinez smile. He knows the conflicts with that piece of property there.
Also, people that live there, that is a blind area, and putting a business there and that kind of thing, that's also something to consider. I know it's a conundrum because I know we want to bring in revenue from the CRA, but also we want to have something that town people, the residents can use.
Joe, is that piece of property in the CRA?
It is not in the CRA.
It's
No.
not.
No, I understand it's not in the CRA. So I was just given a solution to, one, because trying to walk, whether we do that for parking or not, that access, that blind spot where you're walking on Forest Hill to walk over that, people come from Westlake, to possibly have a walking / golf cart bridge just for access, whether you use that lot or not. But that whole area you have to go back on Forest Hill to walk over there. And if you're walking your dog or you're walking, you got the cars flying by you. So I don't know. I guess that doesn't seem like it's a well-received idea.
Could we
Okay.
possibly
I use
use,
that path every time we go.
Right.
And our golf cart's like up on the
Yeah.
sidewalk, trying to like
Right.
make sure we make it. So
Right.
I hear you there.
Could-
I just don't,
No,
I
I don't.
think that piece of property is such an important entrance point to
It is.
our town.
So I
too.
don't have a solution for the,
could we potentially be looking at some kind of parking solution with the North Park, potentially?
Potentially. I would like our engineers, well, the town engineer to just take an eye at it. I know on our site visit out there were swales for drainage.
Okay.
And just to understand what that could look like. And of course, we want to be aware of the potential impacts to the neighbors that have the homes there too. I'm just throwing out ideas. I know that there's a business adjacent to, I think it's a dentistry
Yes.
business adjacent
Dentist,
there. And I
yes.
don't know if there's any opportunity to work out some sort of after hours when their business is closed, to work out a leasing for certain spaces for special events. And then of course, if you make improvements to the pedestrian crosswalks across Forest Hill, that would help with the safety of crossing too, but you would pick up some spaces. You could even shuttle people back and forth.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea at all.
Yeah.
Have we ever talked to them over there? I'm sure they don't want that liability either, whoever owns that parking lot, but.
I'm sure
Yeah,
some
have you talked
attorneys
to
can
him?
figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm not an attorney, so.
It is in the CRA.
It's a very interesting idea. I'm just saying.
Mm.
I mean, even if you go to Jura Park, I just did this recently, but all of their major events, you literally get a little school bus that takes you across. Because they can, you know, and they've grown that parking how many times and they still can't,
No.
you know. So you always have to basically go across, what is it, Summit?
Yeah, and I'm on the Palm Beach North Chamber board, and when we do Mardi Gras up near the North Park where Palm Beach Gardens is, all of our parking lots are pretty close to those areas, but each of them have shuttles, and so they're designated parking, and then they're shuttled back and forth, and so that way, especially for folks who need extra assistance, I mean, they're not having to walk.
That's an option.
But I know it's extra planning on the town side, but just options without having to add additional asphalt or paving into the parks. But I'm thinking more opportunities for folks who want to visit the parks when you're not having an event. Where can they park, or will they still have an opportunity to visit the parks? And that's kind of what I think we were brainstorming with option B, maybe throwing in a couple of parking spaces just for those off hours for folks that just want a sunset walk or want a sunrise walk or something of that nature.
I think Greg had mentioned that on Pine Tree Park, there was already pre-compacted areas that could be used for overflow.
Yeah.
For people that are using the golf carts /
But now you're saying that like food vendor area could potentially be made so that is that correct?
Yeah, you could put
Like a few spots there?
You could put a couple spots there.
The park, not for events.
You could put a couple spots there where a food truck, you could hire 2-3 food trucks to come and park there, so that way they're not tranching through your parks.
Right, yeah.
But they could pull in there, they could serve their food for the events. Maybe you shuttle folks in, you've already have that organized, but in the times where the food trucks aren't there and it's hours that aren't during an event, those spaces could still be utilized for public parking. So, and I think the key here, and that's kind of what Megan and our team looked at, was how do you provide some flexible spaces so you're not always stuck doing one thing in that one space only one part of the day or only during a certain event. So maybe during an event you have the food trucks there, and then when the events aren't happening you can park the public there. Same thing with the open lawn spaces. It really gives you a lot of flexibility. So if you do want to have an event, you can. Otherwise, those open spaces can be really flexible for outdoor yoga or just sitting and gathering. I mean, there's so many opportunities to provide flex spaces because you don't really have that much room. These parks aren't really, really big.
No.
But I think that's the nature of it, is coming up with some of those flexibility options for you.
Yeah, I like the idea about I've heard a couple comments in there about meditation and yoga, because there used to actually be a dedicated area there, but with all the things that we've been doing, it has kind of gone away. Is there, I don't know if this is feasible, there seemed to be a positive response on the amphitheater. Is there any kind of like retractable amphitheater type concept where when it's not in use, that it could be retracted, one for hurricane / reasons, but also 2 for a visual perspective? And I kind of like the idea of what Taylor said about a lot of our events are generally over in Memorial Park versus over in Pine Tree Park. So if we're going to do something like that, why not maximize the feasibility of it?
My question to the panel is, how do we envision using an amphitheater?
Well, a couple things.
Heavy metal concerts.
Absolutely.
Well, you can have concerts, and you have these art shows. We have some of our events, the barbecues. I don't know if the barbecues are always going to be over here.
We need the space to do
I
those.
think what's interesting about a space like that, because an amphitheater doesn't necessarily have to mean big.
Right.
It just can mean a designated stage, like
Right.
that we're not always putting together, has electric built into it and a cover, that we might have the opportunity to program that through the town in ways that we're not even thinking of.
Right.
Because now it
Growth.
is a designated space that meets different parameters. Which is interesting for us in this town, and also very appealing, since we are commissioners on the CRA right now, to people who might want to develop in our community. They're looking for spaces like this that are already built in. You know, I just, not that we have to have an amphitheater, but I do think there are things that we're not even thinking of that we could potentially.
You could
do with
also
it.
use it for movie night.
Then you got the parking problem again.
Well, I think there's a potential parking solution for events.
Mhm.
I think some of our events are going to happen here and some of them will happen in these new spaces, but I can tell you it would be much nicer to sit in grass with my kids and family than a parking lot for movie night, which is what we do now. So, my biggest issue with this overall B concept that I think hits a lot of the marks is exactly what I said before, that I just think the spaces almost need to be flipped. Like, I like Memorial Park. I like the idea of having some covered stage, amphitheater, whatever we call it. The boating and water stuff, all I feel like has to be at that area. And like that second, the Eastern Park really should be more about like the nature experience to me.
What about
And
fitness?
That could be you being
Right.
in nature, having that fitness experience,
Right.
almost how it is now, but just
No,
everything
blended.
updated
No,
and more
No, I agree.
beautiful and lovely to experience. And that the Memorial Park, I think people really, it's like nostalgic and traditional and classic to them that these events have happened there and it's historic.
Can I
Great feedback.
add one thought? I think to Greg's point, if we move the boats and the kayak and everything over to the other park, you know, when a boat pulls up, I don't know if there's music, live music, and there's nighttime and things are going on and boats are pulling up, that could be a distraction. So I think having the amphitheater on the side that's presented there might be a better option, just because really, if everything moves over to the other space, that other space becomes kind of a blank spot now and there's no real purpose. So, I mean, I kind of like the amphitheater just because if we move all the water activities over to the other side and kind of move everything over there, then you've got this great space for real concerts, real things that can happen. And not to mention, like, if you put the amphitheater the way it's facing, boats in the water can still come up and hang out in the water around that area and still listen and watch the music, versus having the way we set it up for our events, the stage, quote unquote, is right in front of the water. So we can't put a hard physical stage blocking the view of the water. I know one of the resident or some residents mentioned, hey, we want an open view. We want to still be able to view the water and not have a physical hard structure sitting on the water. So, I mean, I like this because it still gives us that open view of the water. But if we moved all the boats and all the distractions to the other side, it still gives great space for a nice big open space for concerts and movie night and all those things. Just something to think about as I'm looking at this.
Have you, the reason the amphitheater is positioned the way it is at Harborside or other waterfront locations, have you had experience with people with those sorts of build outs conversations and why they do that? So like while everyone's sitting there, the view is the water and not what would be the street. And that's traditionally why they position them that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we didn't work on Harborside, but I would assume that was, you know, let's get that sunset behind there. But then you think of other places too, like even smaller locations up in Jupiter, like the Square Grouper, and they've got their stage actually facing the opposite direction, so that way they're not blocking their views of the water and the boats too. So
well, that's a
I
sound
think,
issue too, right?
yeah, and I think you can go on two different methods on that.
Yeah, that's a really tough one with the amphitheater and
Yeah.
position, because it's like I don't really want to sit and stare at hopefully there's beautiful landscaping back there. But then if it's facing that way, are people going to be so angry at us because all the sound is going right into the neighborhood?
I don't know, Claudine, how do you feel about that? Joe, excuse me, I don't mean to change the subject, but I have a quick question.
Sure.
Because we did not do the tree lighting or the menorah lighting at Memorial Park this year. Or is staff still contemplating doing it here at Town Hall again, as we did before? Because I know we were having those discussions. It was from a safety perspective, it was better. So that's one of the other things that I do agree with, the whole Forest Hill traffic situation. It's a little, yeah, it's, things happen these days with drivers, distracted drivers, things like that. But are you still thinking about doing it like that again this year?
That would be our recommendation under the current conditions, because we have more infrastructure here and safety.
Yeah.
It's easier to put the event on, but B does have a nice buffer.
That's what I'm saying.
that to the roadway.
Can we
That's
see, can part of next steps just be like various options of this, like amphitheater here, amphitheater there? Incorporating the kid play area and the
Goodness.
exercise, because we know like that was, yes, both of those points have to be on there and they're not really represented on B. Can we see one that sort of is the?
Yeah, so what I was thinking was with this feedback, because we're getting really great feedback here, that what we can do is develop that draft. It's not a final version, but the draft of what we're hearing from feedback to present back to you as a board to get any sort of additional feedback or comments before we go into the finalization of it, if that's okay.
You know, we haven't talked about it, but I know pavilions or some kind of covered area was definitely high on residents. So I just don't want to
I love
forget
those
that.
pergolas.
Yeah.
I love them. I hate that flower. I can't live with that.
But we had to throw something out there. Can I just say one more,
I
one
agree.
more thing about, I just wanted to share one more thing about the amphitheater and why we had placed it on Pine Tree is with the future pump house. I don't even know if this is an option. We were just thinking outside the box, the potential to ever incorporate some restrooms into that building. And then that way you're already
definitely
with the amphitheater adjacent to restrooms. You've already got a building there with the pump house. I don't even know if it's a possibility, but
I already,
well,
we were just throwing ideas around.
I don't know. Maybe I didn't share that with you. Our I can't remember, but our we're gonna have bathrooms in there.
Okay.
But we're gonna have
We're-
bathrooms in
we
there.
are- we are.
For sure for staff. But our idea was what we would propose to council, if this ever comes to a real project, is to have bathrooms available for events that we would lock during the day.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
because of the
That's
homeless.
kind of what we were
Right.
hoping.
Many
So-
reasons.
Yeah, but a big part of that.
Bathrooms for events.
But isn't that depiction of the proposed pump house really in that South Florida Water Management area where see where that,
no, it's got to be on our property. They won't put a structure on there.
I thought that you had it.
No, they might put parking or that driveway. They might give us some parking. South Water Management, it's hard for them to give anything, correct? But for them, we already asked a little bit on that and they said, no way.
Can that pump house be moved to North Park? So it's.
It was originally in North Park.
Because they-
That was the first plan.
Why not put it
but
there?
Yeah, I don't
it's
know
more
if-
fun. I think it's more the function of,
Yeah, I don't think the residents are gonna be looking at on the north side of Pump House.
No.
Well, I mean, we'll landscape it, but
Yeah.
why do we want to look at it in our newly renovated park?
no, it'd be landscaped. But
Yeah,
I think
we're gonna
part of it,
landscape it.
the infrastructure is really for that area of Pine Tree, correct? So
But
it
it-
really defeats the purpose of moving it that far away.
But I mean, to the point of the bathroom and the amphitheater, I think that pretty much seals that conversation. It's like, hey, the kids are gonna have to go to the bathroom, so
I don't
we've
think
got,
we can move it across for it.
But-
so.
No, I'm saying keep it where it's at.
yeah, no, 100%.
But no, the amphitheater, I've heard both, because are we recommending to move it to Pine Tree Park from Memorial Park or?
I like it right where it is with the pump house being the bathrooms.
Even if we move the boats, 'cause I don't think you can park boats there like that.
No, the boats, no, we gotta move the boats.
Okay,
But
okay.
keep the amphitheater and the pump
I
house
can live with
for
that.
some bathrooms.
Okay, I have a number of thoughts and comments if I could.
Yes,
I think it's
I didn't really
critical.
want to go on to
to-
online, so that's why I wanted to email her. Go ahead, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, sorry. I think it's absolutely critical that we do not block the long view of the lake with any structure. I mean, that's our money shot right there. That's like the cover of our
That's why I said
brochures.
4th of July.
Yeah, that's
That's
to me, that's a non-negotiable. I think what I'm hearing and what I personally believe is that we don't need a kayak launch. If somebody has a kayak, it's in their backyard.
Right.
And
we
the other,
have one.
yeah,
We already have one at the boat ramp.
right, at the boat ramp.
Greg's also opened up his house for anybody who wants to launch. They can launch from Greg's house.
Absolutely. You should see what my neighbor tries to do.
The other thing that in the comments that I think is super important is that we want to keep this for resident use and not draw in Forest Hill traffic to the extent that we can. Keep with landscaping or whatever. We don't want to make this a magnet for people going up and down Forest Hill. We want it to be a magnet for our residents. She mentioned that there's not a playground on here. The other thing that was mentioned in both surveys significantly was a dog park. And I think that we ought to circle back to considering a dog park. A splash pad was mentioned significantly. I don't know if there's space for that, or maybe it could go in another one of our other parks.
Over here.
If we get one of those, I'm sending Dan Clark a memo. I've been advocating for a splash park.
I think
for
one
kids
over,
for
I think one
years.
over here would be, we have more
Yeah, we
space
talked
for it.
about it here.
In this location though, it will be just like, come play here. So if we're kind of saying two different things, like we have other spaces at the splash pad.
But now that we say that,
better.
Chrissy, excuse me, Charlie, if we are using the CRA funds and not dollars from grants, can we keep it for residential use only, or would it have to be open to the public?
It technically will be open.
It's going to be open to the public.
Okay, all right.
Just
well,
trying
that's-
not to put like a billboard up that
Well,
says
yes.
splash
I mean,
pad
it's just,
here.
it's good,
I mean, I think
good
if
to
we have
know
a
that we
splash pad,
can't
it should not
exclude.
be on Forest Hill.
Well,
It should-
no, I wouldn't want it here.
it-
My personal preference is this is the safest place. Lord have mercy. We have the police department. This is a safe drop-off zone. You have cameras, you have all this stuff.
I can use it during the day.
Yeah.
And I know there was full responses on that play area, but I think it's interesting, and I've been to some like really cool ones. Specifically, I was in Colorado and they had an awesome one that wasn't a playground, because we have playground. Two of them, right? Three. We have three
Mhm.
technically. But something else that when we're up there watching a show or, experiencing one of our holidays, the kids have something interactive and play experience for them. So I really loved that first image, but I think they came back like almost dead equal in the two looks. So maybe it's a different type of play experience for them that is more cohesive with the natural environment.
Yeah.
Just like a
I
Yeah.
I hear
And there's
you.
ways to theme a playground. If you've seen Heart and Soul Park in West Palm Beach,
Mhm.
it's right there at the Sunset Lounge, and the whole theme is jazz and music, and we could have a cool theme to a boating theme, a marine theme of something, whatever. Can I ask a couple more questions? What is a wildlife viewing bank?
You want to come up and talk about it?
Is it just a bench?
Too much. Something more passive in nature that highlights the bank and keeping it more natural, unlike the concept or the look in concept A, where it's more of a hardscape and a hardened trail.
Okay, and you had a possibility of an art park. What is an art park in North Park there?
So an art park would be more for kids in its nature. It would be concrete and pavement, and that would just be a spot for chalk. It could be fenced in, heavy landscaped, so that it, again, more passive in nature, but it has those spots that it can be multi-use, and art being maybe art sculptures or kids.
It would be
can
cool to have
encourage
some sculptures in a couple of these parks.
Sure.
That's what Heart and Soul is. It's actually an AIPP project.
A what project?
The Heart and Soul Park is not actually themed. It was part of a 1% Art in Public Places project. So they used their Art in Public Places program to fund it, and that's why all of those musicians are represented in Mosaic.
Count Basie, they
Is it possible to maybe add like a dog park in that north at the top up there and see what that looks like up there for that dog park?
that would be pretty small dog park, I think.
It would be quite small. I did director of design, Aaron, at the office with us. We ran past the option a few times of doing a dog park. We're unsure because we were leaning in the direction of doing very passive parks for the three of them. I think residents, especially from the open responses, would be very happy to see the possibility of that.
I'd like to follow up with you. I was out in Tampa for some other reasons. I took a bunch of pictures of their parks because they had a river walk and they had a very small dog park. They had multiple different type of children type things. Doesn't have to be any of those, but they were ideas. Along the bankment on Pine Tree side, rather than have any kind of dockage, they actually had hard like rocks and build up there. So you can walk all the way up to there and just, if you want to fish, you want to sit, you want to meditate. And it was just plain hard rocks. It was like I was using some of that gravel you had. Then they had grasses, very, very subtle grasses and stuff. I have pictures that I'll follow. I mean, I think everybody should follow up, but I think I'd like to follow up and send you some ideas with that, and then you can take them or leave them. But I just thought there were some interesting ideas how they did with the Riverwalk, because we're very subtle to what, and we're not as big as the Riverwalk. We're not, on those that big of a scale, but there was a lot of ideas that could be used. We also talked about on the original planning was having some kind of memorial, remembering the stones that they were already in there. People who already had
Trees.
no, they had some stones.
Yeah.
Some of them were in the trees, some of them were in multiple places. So I had pictures of different, very simplistic type things. Also, they had some in pavers where people donated money. So say I want to remember so-and-so, and they put whatever the donation was. So that actually went towards the park. So I don't know if that's something we want to do for the park itself. But I have pictures of things that they were interesting. So ideas that I would never have thought about, only because I went over there and I just happened to run into it. So, nothing like a picture's worth 1,000 words. So.
And
Go ahead.
ladies first.
I have a dog park comment. I lived not once, but twice in like the Flamingo Park area. Technically, I was in Grandview Heights, and we had a park with multiple usage spaces and a dog park. I, at that time, served on our neighborhood association. There wasn't a single thing in our neighborhood that we discussed more than the use of this dog park. First of all, after the first year, it was absolutely disgusting. We fought day in and day out to get repairs to it, to have it cleaned, for support from the city on that. You know exactly what park I'm talking about. Yeah, you shook your head, yes, like you knew about this dog park situation. There's a big
I
dogs
understand
and
because we
little
hear it on other projects too.
Okay,
That's
yeah. So, and then
we've heard this.
I can't tell you how many times police had to come because of situations with the dogs. People come in and use the dog as soon as there's one identified. Another billboard goes up, dog park here, because most people who live in this neighborhood, they're not in apartments, but the people who came to that dog park mostly were people who lived in apartment spaces, not our neighborhood residents. So I have not had positive dog park experiences in past neighborhoods. I'm not like anti-dog or dog park, but that one was not great. So there's just a lot of things. There's a lot of things that came up that I just couldn't have even imagined when they opened that dog park there.
I love dogs and I love my dog, but all the city managers talk about don't put dog parks in because there's so many headaches and so many maintenance issues with dog parks. And there's a big draw on services because there is dogs that fight and then the people fight and then they call police or fire rescue. So I'm just letting you know, there's pluses and minuses with everything.
Understood. And if the dog park is not in the mix, I think we do need to make this community a lot more dog friendly. We don't have enough
Dogs love sidewalks.
sidewalks. We don't have enough, I've had this conversation with Joe, more poopy bags and places to put them. You have put the bags there, what do people do? Pick it up and they throw it on the ground. So, and he had talked about, they can get disgusting as well. There are new measures that you can do that you're never going to eliminate it to prevent it or minimize it. So I believe I see a lot of dogs, all sizes, small, big dog. I have my own dog, but it's up to the owner to manage them. But I think that if people are irresponsible, they're going to be irresponsible. But if we give them more opportunities to be responsible, maybe they'll take the opportunity. I just think there's not enough in this town. We have a big town and I see very few. The only ones I ever used to see was in the park. Now I'm a responsible owner, so I got my own, I got to get my dog. I have to get my own doggy bags. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But I think if we're going to be a responsive community to pets, that we could do more.
100% support.
We can do more.
Bags in the park.
We can do more. We can do more.
Don't we have those, Joe?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
We do.
the one right here we do.
Yeah, that's all we have. But if you walk your dog down by your house or you walk down Venetian Way, I'm just saying, not for me, because I have the bags regardless. But I see a lot of places where people either pick the bags or leave them there, and or more and more, because the park is closed, they don't even pick it up.
So
It's,
real
I
quick,
don't know what the answer is. I just say I'm intolerant because we got the bridge closed and more and more people are walking their dog.
pick up
Yeah.
your poop. More of that story.
Hey, there's companies that do that, like, can you imagine that? That's an entrepreneur right there. Scoop the poop.
Go for it.
Come on.
Go for it.
No,
Go
thank
for
you.
it.
So my last comment, commissioners, there's no lighting here at all. And when I say lighting, I'm not talking about the poles with the light, but like trail lighting. So you're walking on the trail, or lightings on whatever it is. None of that's really illustrated here. And I think lighting in your yard is so critical. It can make a normal yard look extraordinarily beautiful just with the lighting.
Yeah, Claudine called me. She wants about 10,000 lights at 5,000 lumens.
She's joking.
No, not that kind of lighting. I'm not talking about that kind. I'm just talking about like landscape lighting. Yes.
Low voltage.
Yeah, low voltage landscape lighting to make the parks really add that last little, man, this is beautiful kind of touch. And I know that's not illustrated in any
Does
of
a lot.
these.
It does a lot.
No.
It does a lot for the parks, right? But like it's not illustrated here. So I was thinking, how do we illustrate that? Can you guys do that, or?
Yes, that is such a good question. So yeah, so what we have in our contract, our proposal that we have with the town right now is that we're coming up with a final master plan. And again, we call it a master plan because it's not construction level plans. It's not a landscape plan with all the species and the exact locations they need to be. It's not every single light fixture put in. It's truly a guide to guide the town when the time comes to install or design those construction plans. So it's a guide. It's, hey, this is the feedback we got. This is what we're presenting as far as where we want big major elements to go. So we made the decisions on the docks, or the launches. We made the decisions on the bathrooms. So, a couple of spots that we know for sure, which makes sense because we did the work right now.
Right.
And then when it comes to the lights, that's a given. We didn't ask it because we knew we were going to be putting it in our design guidelines. But when we put that in, we absolutely will be putting information about what we expect for lighting and different ideas and options with visuals to accompany that. So that way, once you get to the point where you can adopt this for the future vision, and that those CRA members in the future see that and they put it in their upcoming budget for the upcoming year, they're able to give that guide to whoever does those final designs for those plans to show what you envisioned here for that future. So yes, that will be in there. Megan will make sure it's in there. And we're going to have a couple of visuals about what it looks like and some information about how we want that to be designed, but not a construction plan that will go to design, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments?
What was decided about the splash pad?
I think we all kind of said these sets of parks are not the appropriate space.
Yeah,
No.
This park here would be.
Right.
This would be an ideal
Right.
spot. But
This,
that's a
100%.
lot of maintenance.
this or
100%.
community would be
Yeah.
not this.
No.
They have their,
Well, you're already doing some more stuff on
Biggest-
Community Park anyway.
you can
All
put
the
anything you
issues about
want
the
in,
one
but
I saw
now you gotta
too.
maintain stuff, That's the problem.
The maintenance
Skinny
is
dipping.
Like a splash pad maintenance.
No,
it's a
but we
lot.
have had unhoused bathing in it.
Yeah, it's a lot of maintenance.
Mhm.
You're gonna have less of that here because the police department's right
Yeah.
there.
Right.
She really wants to wrap this up with us.
No,
She's
we're,
gotta drive back to Jupiter. She's, come on, people.
No rush. I mean, this is what our time is for. But I do want to talk about next steps. So next steps, we both took a bunch of notes. We have a recording of this that we're going to look back on. We'll continue to work with your staff on the next steps. I just wanted to be clear that we're all in the same next steps moving forward. So our idea for next steps is that we're going to take the feedback. We got some very clear feedback from each of you tonight on coming up with a final draft of a master plan with the additional images for lighting. And, we want to come up with a final draft of this that we will send over to you, Joe, and you can distribute. I guess my question is, as far as timeline goes, knowing when your CRA meetings are, would you like us to present this draft to you before your next CRA meeting, and how early before that meeting to allow you proper time to digest the information? Just trying to get an idea of timelines. Or do you want us to send it over and we get feedback through email?
And it doesn't have to be one prototype. It could be option 1 and 2, 3. You can have. Or do you want?
I'd say,
I don't know that we have
Three.
3 concepts.
I would
in
say,
budget, but if you
I would
wanna
say
up the
I
two.
have 9 in one park, okay? So,
I would say
We would love
two.
to design more options. I just, based on
okay.
just the amount.
I'm just saying if you
Yeah.
see, don't hold yourself into one. If you,
Yes.
if you,
No, I think like you said, you have mixed ideas, so you can have some of them are mix and match. So have 2 hybrid ones of what you have here, and maybe that will go from there. Is that
I think what
seem
you're
to?
saying though is we're gonna get one rendering. It's gonna be the best. You're using all of our feedback because that's what's in the budget
Okay.
for what we.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would also say too, because we're
Expensive to
Okay.
render and-
we're creative and we
Okay.
like to come up with different ideas. So if there comes, for example, maybe North Park, we come up with maybe 1 or 2 ideas potentially to change out maybe a certain element.
Okay.
Potentially we might put that in to get some feedback on.
Okay.
I personally would love to have it in email prior to the meeting. I think a lot of this time that we just spent, I
Yes.
would have
Yeah.
gone through, I can read surveys, I
Yeah.
understand feedback, if it's A, B, the same,
Mhm.
like, you know what I mean? I appreciate the presentation very much, but I think it would help us come into everything. I always like getting it in advance.
Now, with September being our budget same month, do we want it in September or do you want it November?
we're going to have a CRA meeting in September anyway, so
Right.
I would put it in September.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if that enough time for you, obviously.
Yeah. if that's
September?
enough.
Quite circling back to the art idea, the sculpture idea. Sculpture in public places. Are there artists that would loan their a few pieces on a rotating basis?
I can talk to you a lot about how public art works because that's one of the things my parents do a lot of.
Yeah.
But it's also like 9, 10 at night. I would love and we have another agenda item. But I can have that.
Okay.
conversation.
I would just like, I'd like them to consider incorporating some public art into the plan.
Yeah. Absolutely. I've got the art written down too, so
Mm.
we're gonna explore that. But I am curious to hear the answer to her question too, at some point.
Typically artists don't loan.
Don't loan.
public art
Mhm.
pieces.
Okay.
No.
It would be exceptionally rare.
So for a timeline ahead of the next meeting, I know that we've typically been providing the materials like the Thursday before the meeting. Would it give you enough time if we gave it to you like 2 weeks before the meeting?
Yes.
Plenty of
Is,
time.
is
Yes.
that, what's a good time?
2 weeks, I think works
I
for
think
me.
we want to give you the time too that you need. So I mean, I think a week
Right.
is fine.
A week is good for me.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds great. Anything else, Megan?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Great job.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
great.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
your
Thank
time.
Thank you,
I'd like
guys.
to follow up with some emails and stuff.
Yeah. You can forward it to me.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll forward it.
Thank you. Safe,
you, guys.
safe travels. All right, new business.
Yes, last item.
Mr. Joe LaBello.
This was, again, we had 3 goals for the CRA. One was to put lighting in community park. Second was to start a master plan. And our third was to look into the feasibility of what most other, I don't even know another CRA that doesn't have staff or a consultant. Most bigger, like West Palm Beach and Riviera Beach and all the big CRAs and Lake Worth Beach, they even have staff. So should we hire, or is there any benefits of hiring a consultant? I don't like to dive into anything, so that's why I'm looking. If anything, we'll put a low cap on it of 15,000. Obviously, the vendor wanted more, so we said no. We want to start slow to see if there's any benefits of trying having a consultant. Now remember, we're good. Staff is, I think, pretty knowledgeable about dealing with developers, dealing with developers' issues, zoning issues, and growth, quality growth. But we're not experts on CRAs. This is something new to us and staff. We just started this in 2016, and basically it was dormant for the first few years in 2016 because it didn't have any money. So it's just, so we're not experts on CRAs, and even the experts that are big cities that have large staffs have staff and consultants. So I'm willing to try it if you are, but if you're not okay with it, we'll do what we've been doing, trying to do it ourselves. But they will help us with marketing. They will help us with ideas of bringing businesses, bettering our own businesses that we have, which we have not done. We have not done good work on that. But that's not my focus. You know what my focus is on is redeveloping, bring quality growth to the corridor. So, and that person would obviously help us with that too. They would have ideas that we can share, they can share with us on how to get that rolling.
I think a consultant's not a bad idea because that's what those folks do. It's just like anything. And we should possibly in the early stages set a not to exceed and see where we go from there. Because the parks are a small portion of this CRA.
Correct.
And did you ever have any feedback from, for sale, the 1850 building there?
What I did was immediately we called the Florida Realty, which is the shopping center, and he did not know. Richard did not know that that was going on. No, so we put them two together, but I haven't heard anything. But he is interested.
Okay.
He is interested.
Well, that's where a consultant can help. They can get involved in that kind of stuff.
Right.
So what'd you say was 15 your number?
Yeah, it's only 100 hours, so it's a very small number. So if we like it, we're going to come back with more money. I know that, but this is the vendor, the consultant that Palm Springs uses. So it's not like we have to bring this person or this firm up to speed because they're right here in Palm Springs. They're the CRA consultant for Palm
I'll make
Springs.
a motion that we give Joe the authority to go and look for an executive consultant to propose.
No, we already have one.
You have one?
It's a staff recommendation.
We already found
You have
one.
it in there?
Yes.
It's about
Yeah,
place.
Joe.
So can I ask a
Yeah,
question here
because
really
of
quick?
time.
We want to use the one that
Palm Springs?
Palm Springs is using.
What's the ROI? So we hired this person. How do we know if they're delivering the goods?
That's a great question. And I don't have the answer for that. That's why I want to dip my toes to see what they can develop because they're going to educate us on what CRAs do normally. Again, I'm focused in on quality development, but there's other things that CRAs do, which is help the businesses that are already established to make them grow, give them business incentives. You know,
I got it.
there's a lot of things that CRAs do that we're not doing.
Does it make sense before you hire this person to sit down and ask him, hey, if we pay you X, what's the ROI? What can we get in return so that we can say, check, this guy's delivering the goods. We got to go in a deeper relationship. I just feel like hiring someone with an arbitrary, we don't know if they're delivering, doesn't really help this town. I think setting some true, when I hire someone, I'm like, hey, here are your job duties. And then when we do a review, it's like, you've done these things and check, we're going to the next step. Like, we don't know what the next step is. So why would we spend the money if we don't know what the rate of return is going to be, or at least the expectation of the ROI?
I think the only way you can do that, because obviously it's such a vague question, like how many developers are going to jump at our offers, is really to put numbers in place that would say like they met with a minimum of 10 developers for these sites, something that is more quantifiable, because there's really no way to know what developers are gonna.
Right, but like, could that person tell us what his deliverables will be?
I think that's
a
very.
proposal.
They're not, like, he's gonna like,
That's really vague.
That's part of my plan. My plan is to meet with the person.
Marketing.
Yeah, it is mostly marketing. That is true. But my plan is to meet with the person, actually go over what I'm thinking, what staff's thinking, and then for them to come to a meeting, because I don't make policy, you all do, even in this committee. So to say what they've heard from staff, what do you want to, these are the services we can provide. What do you think of them? So to get your input.
I thought of another potential way to think of what the ROA could potentially be, is to look at all of the sites that we do have available for development in the CRA and what their market value could potentially be right now and how that would impact the CRA overall. That might be another opportunity for us to say, this could be the potential ROI of bringing in someone that's doing this specifically. Because right now, these functions that they laid out in this proposal are things that are not happening, correct? Outside of, like, I know you did the brochure for us.
It was staff.
Right. I gotcha. But
Right, yeah.
these other pieces really aren't happening. There isn't someone actively seeking out developers. There isn't someone actively attending conferences and marketing our CRA. There isn't someone meeting with Kelly Smallridge and promoting us
Well,
and
I
all
am.
of those.
I am.
Okay.
And I go to quarterly meetings with, so yes, I am doing some of
What,
it, but not,
but,
but as a, to
but as like a
entice,
side gig.
right, to entice development and, you know, my hours are getting thinner and thinner with losing staff, but this person could educate me, because I'm not an expert on CRAs, and I've always told you that. So, but I don't know what you even want. I know what I want. And I keep saying is combine those properties to entice quality development, right? That's my goal. But I don't know if that's your goal. That's why I want to meet with you individually and go over these things with you. But also this person can help us.
I have a question about this, how you found them. Obviously, it's Palm Springs. Does Palm Springs feel like they had a good return on their investment by working with this company?
Yes, they're happy with. It's a person, so it's Allison. I don't know if there's other staff. Emily, do you know if there's other staff?
What a little niche market.
Yeah.
But it also says that they'll come back to execute an agreement subject to the attorney review and approval for legal sufficiency. So it's not just a done deal of the 15,000.
Up to 100 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but you have to come back and sign this agreement. All we're doing is authorizing it. They got to come back with an agreement and we say,
No, if you, I'm asking for you to approve it, then,
Agreement.
and then
Yeah,
subject
okay.
to.
got it.
I think we ought to dip our toe in. First, understand, I mean, to John's point, understand a very refined scope of work, and then authorize 50 hours and see what they come back with. And if we like that, then we can authorize.
But didn't they say?
Yeah, and guys, let me be clear. I'm not worried about the 15,000 or the 100 hours. I'm just saying, what is the rate of it? What are we getting in return for the $15,000? I don't care if it's $100,000 and 20,000 hours. Just what are we getting for giving them that money? That's all I care about.
We're getting them marketing us to major developers that are in town. And it's just, that's why I was trying to come up with some ways we could.
Right. Like what,
justify
like when she's selling her
ask for that.
services to other firms, what is she saying I'm going to give you and respond? And as I take your money, but here's what I'm going to deliver. Here's what I stand by. This is my scope of work. This is my specialty. This is how I help my clients.
Her list of
that
scope
is
of
her scope
services
of
is right
services.
there.
Yeah, but we don't need all that stuff that's on
Are you
there.
looking at the same document?
Yeah, I'm looking at this, right?
No,
No.
that's why I was saying, because it's pretty specific of the scope of services.
Oh, well,
and
this
we
is,
wouldn't all of
this
that.
is
We don't
scope of
need her
work
at him or
There's more
her
detail in the
conferences
next
and
page.
trade shows. We're
from her company.
small. We have.
She is about a place LLC. Yeah, this is, I mean, that's just what Joe wrote, but this is what she's actually
We're
delivering.
tiny. We're 2 blocks long. Our CRA is 2 blocks long.
Is there another way for us to quantify the potential of development of our CRA areas?
We are limited on our spaces.
Right, that's why I'm saying, like, if we invest 15,000, the potential could be, if she is successful, that we would bring in X amount.
Hmm.
Because I don't think there's a rush on this, right, Joe?
There's no rush.
So
There's
we can take our time on
There's,
having this person come in. I do think in the long term, it is necessary for us to be successful because someone has to be focused on your CRA.
Right now, the biggest is that.
I mean, I agree with that
property
too.
come online.
So Joe, let me ask you this. What is the timeline? I mean, I know there's the 100 hours or whatever. Is that 100 hours over 2 years? Is that 100 hours over
So-
5 years?
Year.
Is that 100 hours over the
It's a-
next 6
it's a-
months? Like
it's-
what kind of timeline are we talking about?
it's a year.
Year. It's a year.
One year timeline on this. So we'll say, hey, we'll give you 15 grand, 100 hours for 1 year. Let's see what happens. Let's say we like her, but there's no change in communication or, you know, it's just, she can't control whether a guy who's going to meet with her, like that's just out of her scope. She has no control of that. How can we still say she's delivering the goods?
Well, again, we have to set up measurables and I don't want to do that because my measurables, I've told you what my measurable is.
Right.
So, but your
What's your
measurables,
measurable?
my measurable is combining those properties and enticing quality development. The big, but
If
you,
we combine
and so
those
the
properties,
measurable's
Richard
the
will be the
value there.
developer. We don't need to.
but we need to educate our property
What
owners
Right.
that the combining properties is the way to go to get quality development. Those properties are too small. And to entice quality development, you have to combine those properties. So that's
Right.
my main goal.
But we don't need
Bring
a
in
consultant
quality.
to do that because that's that we already have. We've already half the panel knows the developer.
It's to help the marketing of that for
There's no
me.
guarantee that that's going to happen
No.
with Flagler Realty, by the way. It's not like they said yes.
No, of course not. No, and there's a big problem. There, in the middle of all that, there's a piece that's condoed. But my job is just to put them together.
Is there, can we ask for some measurable, something that we can say? I think ROI is hard because that's big, but like, if there's something that we can
You can do
develop in this proposal to have some measurable.
You can do it two ways. I'm thinking of options. That's my job. One is we don't sign it. We have the person comes to the next meeting and let her sell herself. Or B, we sign it and I tell her what my vision is and then say, but I want you to meet with the council and see what their visions are. And not council, you guys are commissioners. With these, so those are the two options that I see. But obviously she needs to work for some money, so she's you have to get paid to do some work.
We've got so many uses for this money. With everything from amphitheaters to docks,
right,
to splash pads, to combining properties. We don't have enough money to do half of what we're talking about here. So I'm not sure.
$50,000 isn't going to move that needle, but what they could potentially deliver
Yes,
for us. What,
yes.
So that's like the bigger picture
Right.
here. We're not going to ever do with our CRA money what we could be doing
Yes.
with our CRA money unless we invest in something like this. I just don't think that, Joe, whether we're a small town or not, we have a small staff too. I mean, do you know how many people work at the city of West Palm Beach? It's insane. Obviously, much bigger population, but I think it's unrealistic for him to act in all of these roles. I'm not like saying we can't do the dip your toe. Is that what you said? Dip your toe in?
Yeah.
Dip your toe in technique either. I don't think it's a bad thing for us to talk to her in person and have these questions answered. I'm sure she can talk about a proposal and how there's measurable outcomes and ROI and all of that directly.
I agree.
I agree with that 100%. And you could just tell her, hey, here's what they want to know. So she's prepared and she can come and be like, all right, great, you're it. You're that's it. The ROI, it's like spending money on something where you have no real expectation of what you're going to get in return. That's tough.
I agree. I don't want it to be a staff member. I want it to be something it's an added value.
Right.
So can we do that at the next CRA meeting?
Yes, of course. It's
Okay.
just, which option do you want me to do? Do you want me to sign this and have her work for a little bit of money before the meeting, or do you want her to sell herself at the next, invite
her
her?
to sell herself or at least just answer questions
Sure.
before we
Is that
potentially bring her on board.
Is that the consensus? It should be? Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay,
I think we're winding down
Claudine
here.
is looking to be recognized.
Okay, we're getting to that point. All right, go ahead. Go ahead. You want to step up?
Good evening, Claudine Vasseur, 694 Venetian Way. Talking about the parks, first of all, I'm a bit disappointed in one way. It's that I hear a lot, when I give an example, the amphitheater, I hear a remark, we don't want that in the park of Memorial and blocking the view for people from the lake. Somebody, you said, let's put it in Pine Tree. And never there has been brought in concern for homes that looks frontwards to those parks. Would you live there when there is a concert in front of your? They took already all the trees away, and now you're going to put a place where they're going to sing.
I personally would love it. Sit by my pool. Wouldn't even have to leave
Oh
my
yeah,
house.
all right, all right.
Music's probably going to be on around 7 or 8 o'clock and probably done by 8:39. I mean, I personally would love it. That's just me personally, but you might not like it. And
No, I don't think my
like
neighbor would either.
Yeah.
No, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think that park needs absolutely to be a park where people don't sit or stay. It needs to be a park. That portion of the park should be a park where people move, walk, train, where there is movement, not static people that are watching at the neighbors all day and take pictures and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. You don't want that. Now, when it's the amphitheater is on Memorial, it can be used for different functions. When you take about the thing they projected, you have that circle, you have like kind of that canopy. Huh? The canopies can stay down all the time, so you can do yoga there, etc. All kind of arts or exercise. If there is an event like Christmas, Hanukkah, all those things, well, then people can enjoy that place. Then I would see boat docks there to go and stop. It's a nice event for Lake Clark Shores. And the person who stayed there, you have the biography. You say that? Biography? The natural landscape of Memorial when you are with your back to the lake. It's like a stadium already. So when you're on the bottom, you have the people on the stadium. You don't even need to build it. The only problem is parking, but I'm sure there is something that can be found for that. And at that moment, I don't think it would be a problem for a couple of times to use Pine Tree Park, as there is already money put it in to put a place for the parking spots. That's my opinion. Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed. And I told already, when you saw the plans, it was a bit confusing because the part of Florida waterway, it was very, very teeny. So it confused people. They think that water tank for the septics and all that tralala is right on the water, but that's not the case. Huh? It's much more to the left side. Couple of things like that. They should also show the homes, or at least the garden line in front of the parks. But I think you need to take all the people living here in consideration.
Let's see what they come back with and
Yeah,
there.
I just was upset by what I hear. Then
Understood.
not once I hear why we don't ask on the 4 people who live straight in front of it. It's already awful now. I mean,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Claudine.
Well, I waited a long time. Difficult for me.
All right.
Okay.
Executive director comments.
Yeah, maybe I can answer one question that came up a couple times about how do you fund this project? Like I said, I have no experience with the CRA, but I have experience in developing parks and development. How you get funding for these things is grants. There is parks grants out there. Also, and they're mostly matching grants, so you can match with CRA money. Believe it or not, when you have quality development, developers, when they know you have a campaign, they say, oh, let me build that amphitheater. And they just donate that money. So when you have a plan and a marketing plan, and even residents, believe it or not, I've had residents, once you have you'll have naming rights of these pavilions and all that. Paver bricks, I'm not a fan of because they never really pay for themselves, but it's not a bad thing. It's good for the community. But when you put big ticket items out there, sometimes you get people to actually contribute considerable amount of money, and developers do too. So grants.
Hello, Richard.
Huh? Thank you. So just giving you other options to think. There is other ways to fund this whenever, but it's not going to be over the next year. It's going to take multiple years, but there is ways to fund this without using totally CRA money. Just wanted to let you know that.
And then we had this discussion, if we do a grant and down the road we want to pay that grant off, then it comes back to, we can make it community access only.
Well, I thought Charlie answered that perfectly. Just think it's open to the public because if you want to limit the parking to residents only or anything like that, is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No.
This is just questions that were brought to me from residents. This is
And
my
everybody wants
question.
it, but just remember, you won't get a penny of grant money if you limit to Lake Clark Shores residents.
So people still got a bad taste in their mouth from the boat ramp. That's what that's just the feedback I'm getting about it. So I'm just bringing the concerns forward.
I understand, but it's a quality boat ramp versus getting free money versus, that's the decisions you have to make. But there is some cities that look into it, that you have to actually pay the grant back to close it, even to limit the parking. Some people want to limit the beach parking to residents only, but you have to give the funding back. So I just wanted to make sure you all know that. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah.
Okay.
When you have pine tree between there is a space that's where you have grass on both sides and you see the lake on both sides when you are on pine tree. There are rail bars for security. Would it not be possible to bring those inwards, closer to the road, and then put benches between that security thing and the water where people could sit, could fish, and you disturb nobody? There are no.
I think that has to be something we would go back to our, like, that's a safety issue,
Yeah.
and, right, we'd have to have someone take a look at that. I don't think we can answer that.
Yeah, okay. It was just an idea because that's a location where you have no direct neighbors. They're just very far away. So.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. John, you have any comments?
I'm good. I'm all coming out
Good. Just one piece of feedback that we heard from our from Cutler and Hearing about the pride that people feel in this project taking place, I think is the most important thing. And I know we're all here late tonight and we're feeling it, but I think it's gonna be a game changer for this community. So, really important.
I agree with you. Overall, that's what I'm hearing too.
That's what I'm hearing.
I just want to reiterate Joe's earlier comment for the residents who made the many comments about don't spend any money in the parks, pave the roads. They're two different buckets. We cannot take CRA money to use it to pave the roads.
Thank you. Got to keep saying it. Thank you.
Nor are we taking town money to do the parks. The CRA is a separate, like it's saying the same thing. So we're not using your taxpayer dollars from ad valorem taxes for the park. That's a whole separate bucket, as Chrissy indicated. You have anything else you want to close with?
I'm good. Thank you.
Well, I think it's a very productive meeting. I think I'm excited about the future growth of the parks, whatever design is finished. Hopefully we get this bridge done. Hopefully we get the help of cleaning up our lake, which we'll all put it together. One of the other things I was hoping to mention was that hopefully we're doing some kind of water friendly or vegetation for the wildlife. We talked about the wildlife, but we talk about the plants in the park, but I think we need to do more for not only it'll also help with the cleanup of the water, the lake itself, but it's also environmental friendly to our bird sanctuary community. So
big believer in that.
Yes. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, staff. Thank you for all your patience. You all have a good night.
Thank you.
Motion.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Do you have a second?
Oh, I will second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. You all have a good night.
I don't know if we got some time, but I'm going